center field. That's got carry. It's gone. Number 500 and history for Miguel Cabrera.
Bottom line is, man, it's hard to break us now. It's hard to break us. As a matter of fact, you ain't going to do it.
Open look going as he hits it.
What a play called by Tom Izzo in that timeout.
I was 7 years old watching a football game by myself, and I saw those winged helmets come out of the tunnel, and I was hooked at that point.
Kane in Chicago! Oh my God! Kane with the overtime winner!
Jameer Gibbs to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. You can't cover that man one-on-one. You just can't do it.
He drives, lobs to JD for a jam.
You play real good, you start. You don't play as good, you work your way back in. It's the American way, except America has gotten soft. But that is the American way. That's the way it works.
This is the 6'6" Kane Cunningham! Jameson Williams, he's got it! Touchdown, Lions!
Hello, everybody, and welcome in to X's and Bros here on a Wednesday morning. I'll be your host today, Andy McDonald. I am filling in for the great Matt Shepard, who has some stuff going on, but he'll be back with us soon. I'm happy to be here and be able to talk to you guys about what I'm sure he'd be happy to talk about today, and that is the Detroit Tigers getting a win last night at 4-1, because a lot of it came from the younger people in the lineup, and that's what I think a lot of people are tuning into to watch for the rest of the year. The show is probably presented by the Michigan Sports Network. Thank you guys for tuning in today, and yeah, if you got the chance to watch last night, it was one of those games where it started out kind of the same way. I felt like no matter how good the Tigers pitching was at any point last night, it wasn't going to be enough to get them out of trouble, I guess, per se, because it always seems like even if they pitch good lately, they haven't been able to hit, or it's the opposite way around. Last night, the Tigers snap a 6-game losing streak with a 4-1 win over the Rays. Jackson Jobe doesn't give you what you want, I think, out of that start. I think you saw a lot of pitches. You wanted to see him probably go at least 5 innings last night, but I think the one thing that you can kind of hang your hat on last night is that he did get out of a pretty big jam when they had multiple guys on base and nobody out at one point. He was able to get a strikeout and a pop out in the infield and was able to work his way out of a jam, which is what you want to see from a young pitcher, regardless if it was in the 4th inning, regardless if there was too many pitches at one point or another. It was good to see him get out of that jam, and I think you're happy to see that because that's what you want to see. The only thing I would say about it is that last year we saw a lot of this where he did have some trouble with his slider and his breaking ball and his fastball not getting enough swing and miss. At least you saw the swing and miss last night with the at-bat there in the 4th inning to help him get out of that jam. And then the reason that makes a big difference in the game is because instead of it being, 3-0 Rays, it stayed 1-0 Rays at that point. He did give up a run in that 4th inning. He ended up going 4 1/3, giving up a run. Max Clark hits a huge go-ahead 2-run homer, his first home run at Comerica Park. It was a lefty-on-lefty matchup. He if you watch the replay, he carries the bat almost all the way to first base. He was so excited. I can't say that I blame him for that. If I hit my first home run at Comerica Park, the place that drafted me, the place I've been waiting to get to for a while now, and especially this year, Kevin McGonigal being one of his better friends to the minor league systems and baseball in general, watching him play all year up in Detroit, I'm sure he's been wanting to get up there and play with him and show that he has, the can be the other two to that 1-2 punch. And he hits a big home run last night for the fans and gives them the lead. The Tigers end up extending the lead in the bullpen that we have talked about so many times, giving up too many runs. Does a great job last night. A lot of people want to point to what AJ Hinch does, with his decisions and who he puts in the game when it comes to the bullpen. Last night, he goes to the bullpen early. I feel like a lot of people would have been maybe upset, would have wanted to see, Jackson Jobe starts the 5th inning with an out, and they go to Drew Summers. And Drew Summers has been the best pitcher in this Tigers bullpen for a good amount of time now. And they use him in the 5th inning. I feel like some people would have said later on in the game, if they would have blown it, that was the wrong decision. Well, guess what? Last night it was the right decision. AJ went to him early, and he got the 5 outs without allowing anybody on base, right through the heart of the Rays order. That was a very important part of the game as well. So it's a big moment. And then later on in the game too, one moment that I wanted to make sure that I pointed out, because this guy's been having a pretty good season. He's been putting together Loki, hitting over 280 now. Hao Yu Lee later in the game, the Tigers had Javi Baez lead off. I want to say I'm trying to remember what inning it was. I believe it was the 8th inning. Led off the 8th inning with a triple, and this is, I mean, maybe it was the 7th. It was a huge insurance run to get, and at that point in the game, pretty much. And the Tigers did what they have done multiple times over the last few years. It feels like where they get runners in scoring position and they don't bring them home. They had 2 outs, and Lee comes up and hits a single, and that's kind of what he's been doing this for a while now. He's shown that he has the ability to hit in this league, and obviously it's still not as big of a sample size as you need to declare him a part of this starting lineup going forward. But I think you can definitely understand that you're getting something from that. And that's kind of what leads us to the Mitchell Lions Wealth Poll question of the day. Which up-and-coming Tigers players not named Kevin McGonigal? Not to say that you don't want to watch Kevin McGonigal, because you want to watch Kevin McGonigal. There's no question about that. But what Tigers not named Kevin McGonigal are you tuning in for to watch the remainder of the season? Is it Lee, Jackson Jobe, Troy Melton, or Max Clark? And the reason that I decided on this question is, sure, I mean, you could say all 4 of them, and that's fine. I totally understand that. But I think that there's specific players that people do want to watch get better. If I had to guess on this list, I feel like it's Max Clark, just because he's been the prospect that people talked about for the longest amount of time now, it feels like. But I do think there's some interesting pieces with the rest of this too. Jackson Jobe has been somebody that's been talked about for a long time. We obviously have seen the success Troy Melton has had this year. He's ran into a little bit more trouble today. He does start tonight, or today, I should say, at 1:10. They play this afternoon against the Tampa Bay Rays, trying to get their first home series in way too long. But they do wrap that up, and Troy Melton will be pitching today. So if you're looking to watch him, and then Lee, I think he's an interesting player. The defensive side of the ball is a problem for him at times, but what you've seen with the bat, I think that you like that. So it was overall a positive performance for the Tigers last night. But the unfortunate part about all of it is it doesn't change their spot in the standings. If you are still paying, I feel like, the vibe that I got from a lot of people, I was at the Whitecaps last night covering the game, and most people you ask about the Tigers right now, it's just, we're ready to move on to next year, but maybe we can watch and see what our future players have to do. Nevertheless, they are 7 games out of the American League Central. The Chicago White Sox still hold first place. Watch out for those Cleveland Guardians. They're a game over 500 now, and they're only 2.5 back of the Chicago White Sox. They seem to find a way to do this at the end of every year, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. But yeah, the wild card standings, the Tigers are still 4.5 back. And when you look at it, there still is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There still is 6 teams between them and that spot. So it's going to be hard for them to get back in it. They dug themselves this hole, and it's crazy how you can look just a week back, and you're talking about the Tigers holding one of those spots, and then they lose 6 games in a row, and they're this far out. So it's going to be a tough climb to get back, but I think there still are interesting things to watch with this team the rest of the season. I think that is the one important part to remember. And the other thing that I wanted to know is last night, even Zaire Hope went deep to dead center for Erie. That's his 3rd home run with the organization now. He has 26 in the season. We're going to talk to John Vanderwall a little bit later in this broadcast. I know that he was not too happy about the Tarek Skubal trade, but I think that you're starting to see some payoff maybe there from Zaire Hope. It's tough to be a minor leaguer and move to a different city like that fast, and sometimes you're on the road somewhere and have to go on the road somewhere else, and you don't know where you're living. Maybe he's settling in a little bit more now. That's something to definitely watch the rest of the season with his box scores and keep up with him a little bit. But that's it's good to see. And if you get the chance to go watch you can find it out there on X, where we also stream live on YouTube and Facebook. But if you go out there and search Zaire Hope, you'll definitely be able to see that home run. It was a moonshot, that's for sure. But yeah, we'll also be talking to Jeff Francoeur later in the show. I'm excited about that. He called the Dodgers Braves game last night, and I'm excited to hear what he has to say about that, because he'll be able to give us a little bit of a preview of Tarek Skubal and his return to Detroit this weekend, which is obviously a big deal for a lot of people, and I feel like that'll be a reason that they pack the ballpark. Hopefully we get to see him pitch. I believe he's going to pitch. I will look into that more here in a minute. But yeah, it's definitely exciting. We're excited to talk to him too. I'm also going to have my buddy Dean Helsrath on to talk a little bit of high school football at around 7:18. He's very well versed in this state with knowing multiple things. I'm excited to be able to get him on the show. So that's going to do it for the first segment here on X's and Bros. When we come back, we'll be talking to you a little bit about the Detroit Red Wings. What's going on with them? I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm sure you guys are still trying to figure it out. But you're listening to X's and Bros.
Huge here for all the ABC Warehouse locations in Michigan. Now, if you're looking for the best prices on TVs, furniture, appliances, mattresses, and more, you need to go to abcwarehouse.com. You can shop there and also shop in person at all ABC Warehouse locations across Michigan. For the one close to you, go to abcwarehouse.com. Best deals on TVs, appliances, furniture, and mattresses at all ABC Warehouse locations in Michigan.
Squeeze every last drop out of summer at Meijer, where you'll find great prices throughout the store. Fresh from Meijer chicken wings or pork spare ribs family packs are just $2.79 a pound. And a 16-pound bag of Meijer charcoal is only $6.99. Enjoy sweet California yellow peaches for just $1.99 a pound. Plus, save $1 on select Kraft shredded cheese or Hudsonville ice cream with our Buy 5 and Save $5 mix and match sale. That's good life quality at real low prices. Only at Meijer. Exclusions apply. See the Meijer app for details.
You know, we're fortunate here in Michigan. We have some of the greatest golf courses in the country. Tullymore and St. Ives is part of the reason we can brag the way we do about our golf. Once you visit Tullymore, you'll keep coming back. The view is breathtaking. The golf is fantastic. The accommodations are regal, and the people are special. It really does feel like a home away from home at Tullymore. Make your play and stay reservations today by going to tullymoregolf.com or by calling 1-800-972-4837. That's 1-800-972-4837. X's and Bros knows how much you love the Lions.
10, 5, end zone, touchdown Detroit Lions.
Every Tuesday at 8:35, we'll talk with Lions linebacker Jimmy Rolder because you just can't get enough football talk.
And the grab with the catch with Jimmy Rolder right there, and they love the way Jimmy Rolder plays.
Lions linebacker Jimmy Rolder every Tuesday morning.
Saying, delayed handoff, Jackson, and he's hit in the backfield by Rolder. No game.
X's and Bros brought to you by Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort.
Coming up later today at 3 on the Huge Show on the Michigan Sports Network, I'll deliver huge opinions on everything you're talking about.
Just the one inning was really the big issue, and execution on that slider continues to be tough. He went to the curveball a little bit. He got a little bit of swing and miss tonight, and they just made him work, but I thought he did an incredible job staying in control in the big inning where they had 30 pitches, and he really needed to navigate runners in scoring position, less than 2 outs, and gets a big pop-up, and working his way through that inning instead of it being a 3-spot the way that we scored, with a mistake or a bloop hit or more walks than what he did. He came through with excellent pitches.
That's AJ Hinch on Jackson Jobe talking about his outing last night. Again, went 4 1/3. Was able to get out of a big jam that he was kind of talking about there, and some of the off-speed pitches that he has had a little bit of trouble with, but he's still been able to figure it out. And so far he's had 5 innings, and he went 4 1/3. So I think he went 5 1/3 in one of those starts. So he's definitely been progressing in a way you want to see. I think it's when you have Tommy John surgery, you don't just step back on the mound and immediately start hurling 7 innings and shut out baseball. And I think that's what some Tigers fans have come to expect to a certain extent. And I think you got to have some patience with him just to be able to come back from the injury a little bit. But you still, like what you saw last night, something about it when Jackson Jobe starts, it's not necessarily always because of him, but they just seem to find a way to win the game. They do win last night against the Tampa Bay Rays, first place team in the American League. They win 4-1 last night and snapped their 6-game losing streak. But what I want to get to is another team here that we talk about plenty on this show, and that is the Detroit Red Wings. We kind of have talked about it a little bit this week when it comes to Dylan Larkin and how that still hasn't figured itself out and what's going on with the Red Wings. Well, according to Bob Duff on the Full Hockey Press podcast, who hosts that show, he said that he heard from Simon Evanson's agent that he doesn't know who he's supposed to be talking to negotiate a contract. That this is where I start to get confused when I listen in, because when I see that, it's like, how are you? Okay, Steve Yzerman has not had a job since July 15th. That's when he stepped down. We'll put big air quotes on that with step down. We don't know what happened officially or what the decision was. I'm sure there's more to it than just him making that decision that late in the summer. But regardless of that, opinion of mine, I think that it's extremely, extremely concerning that you haven't made a decision on who your at least interim GM is going to be at this point yet. You still, obviously, whoever's making some of the decisions with some of the smaller contract signing they've had down here with the AHL Grand Rapids Griffins in West Michigan, that's where I'm broadcasting to you from at 96.1 The Game. Whoever's making those decisions at any point, it still has to be coming from within the organization. But when you see Simon Evanson's agent, who is one of your better, this is one of your better defensemen. You want this guy going forward at this point. Obviously, there's always the debate on if he was going to be a part of a trade for Quinn Hughes, and a lot of people would have liked to see that back then. That's understandable because Quinn Hughes is obviously one of the best defensemen in the NHL. This is a guy you need on your team at this point, and I think a lot of Red Wings fans would still tell you that they're pretty happy with this guy being on the roster. And it's not that I don't think he's going to be a Red Wings. I do think they're going to get this job done eventually, but this is just the kind of thing that we've seen from this organization over the last I want to go back, you can't go back 10 years because that's not fair when, they last made the playoffs. But we're talking, since Steve Yzerman took over 7 years ago, obviously things were not in a good spot at that point. And to his credit, Steve Yzerman deserves the credit that he did make this team and organization better than it was at that point. Now, it was hard to be worse than they were at that point. But these are the kind of things. When we talk about Mo Seider and Lucas Raymond from a couple summers ago, those dragged on all summer, and you were just waiting for the signing to happen. And obviously, this isn't Steve's position anymore, so it's more on Chris Ilitch and who he's going to hire as the GM and who he's going to help make the decision. And I'm sure he wants that GM to help make that decision, whoever he does hire. But this is what we're getting at. You're talking July 15th, you lose your GM. You still don't have a GM. Dylan Larkin requested a trade earlier this summer. Hasn't been traded. Still is in this team. Probably is going to be on this team come training camp. And now you have Simon Evanson's agent, according to this podcast, reportedly saying that he doesn't know who he's supposed to be negotiating with. This is the kind of stuff that just can't happen. Like for this late in the summer. And it's why it's so concerning. This is a hockey team that I love to watch. Growing up as a kid, you love to see them in the playoffs. You haven't seen them in the playoffs in forever, right? this is the kind of stuff that keeps growing. Like it becomes more growingly frustrating when you don't know who's going to be on your roster. I mean, that's from the fans' perspective, that's all it is. And I think if you're a fan, what Mo Sider was quoted in an article saying, over the past couple of weekends, saying that, talking about the Larkin trade, like it's not their business to talk on it, and he's just excited to get back out there and play for the fans and everything else, and wants to do something for the fans because they've earned it. If you're a fan, you're loving to hear that. And the Red Wings social media team, they've been pumping it in there that like with plenty of quotes from him recently. A lot of people want to believe that that's a soft launch for getting the C on his jersey instead of Dylan Larkin. We don't know anything about that. Okay, we don't know what's actually going to happen. The point is, you like Mo Sider in a Red Wings uniform. You like Simon Edvinsson in a Red Wings uniform too. That's a big pillar of your defense going forward. And the fact that his agent doesn't even know who he's talking to when it comes to that point. I mean, this is where you feel like you're running yourself in circles with the Red Wings every time you talk about them, because you just don't know what they're doing right now. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating because, you had a team this weekend not this weekend, this past year, the Grand Rapids Griffins, that was very good down here. You started to see some progress with some of those players, but that's been the problem. They win at that level. What, it's if they win at that level, what does that do for the Detroit Red Wings? It doesn't do anything for the Detroit Red Wings. You want to see those players move and make some progress. You haven't seen that. So that's another part of it too. And I feel like this is just the kind of decision that is, it's just not a decision. They haven't made a decision. This is the kind of problem the Red Wings organization has had time and time again for the past however many years now that they haven't been able to figure their way out of. And we're just hoping to see something change there. And I don't know who people want as a general manager for this team. The issue is that a lot of people don't want to see it come from within, but at this point, it feels like that's gonna probably be the option. Like it's gonna probably be an interim. Maybe they are going to go for a president, like Scott Harris with the Detroit Tigers. Maybe they do go for the president of not baseball, hockey operations. Maybe they go that route and they try to do that. But regardless, people just want to see somebody hired, I think, at this point. I mean, you may have an opinion on who they hire and why it's good or why it's bad, but I think people just want to see somebody hired. I want to see somebody hired. I want to see somebody making a decision for this team so I know that it's not still Steve Yzerman making the decisions. Because right now, who else is it? Who else is making the decisions in the organization? I mean, is it Sean Horcroft? Is it Chris Draper? Is it? I mean, we don't know. We don't know who's making any of these decisions for the Detroit Red Wings right now, and it's becoming frustrating time and time again. And on the Dylan Larkin front, as I mentioned a little bit, there was nothing with that trade. Still haven't had anything come to fruition with that. But if I had to make a guess, he's probably going to be in a Red Wings uniform, and you're going to have that drama going on in the locker room with, do these guys accept him back? I mean, like I said, Mo Sider's comments, he was reported to say it's not like he said they are better with Dylan Larkin in a Red Wings uniform than they aren't, which is pretty obvious. But at the same time, if you don't have a good vibe and you're not getting along, well, in the locker room, that could be an issue that leaks out onto the ice too. So, if you guys have thoughts on it, you can feel free to text 2100 to Sports Radio. The Meijer hotline is 866-838-4843. I'd be happy to take your calls and talk to you guys about it, because I think I'm like a lot of people. I'm trying to figure out why this is still at where it's at and why we haven't had a decision on a general manager. It was obviously late in the summer when Steve Yzerman stepped down, and if that was truly his decision, it's really tough timing for the Red Wings organization to make a hire if they want to make the right one. But it's at this point, you have to do something. You can't just keep going on with the same mantra that you've been doing basically for the past 7 years since he did have the job. And this offseason hasn't given any more clarity to anybody on what's going to happen with the future of this hockey team. So that's what we're getting into here on X's and Bros right now, talking about that. And then in the next segment, we'll dive into a little bit of Pistons maybe. Saw the reports on Jalen Duren and what maybe is expected to be his paycheck up here in the coming seasons. And I want to know if people are happy with that. So you're listening to X's and Bros.
Huge here for my good friend Josh Garvey and the team at Dorn Mayhew, West Michigan, one of the world's top accounting, CPA, and business firms. Her worldwide headquarters are in Troy, Michigan, on the east side of the state. And Josh and his team connect with all the sports fans and businesses across Michigan. They bring you John Beeline on the Huge Show. They bring you Lomas Brown during the Lion season. They are a top shelf team when it comes to growth and understanding what their clients need. And mix in when we do the Beat Huge contests or the NCAA March Madness brackets. Thank you, Josh Garvey, for what you do for the Huge Show and the Michigan Sports Network. Simple and easy. Just find Doran Mayhew on all the social networks or just Google Doran Mayhew and find out how they can help your business. And again, a special thanks to Josh Garvey and the Doran Mayhew team in West Michigan.
Squeeze every last drop out of summer at Meijer, where you'll find great prices throughout the store. Fresh from Meijer chicken wings or pork spare ribs family packs are just $2.79 a pound. And a 16-pound bag of Meijer charcoal is only $6.99. Enjoy sweet California yellow peaches for just $1.99 a pound. Plus, save $1 on select Kraft shredded cheese or Hudsonville ice cream with our Buy 5 and Save $5 mix and match sale. That's good life quality at real low prices. Only at Meijer. Exclusions apply. See the Meijer app for details.
You can't get enough Lions talk. X's and Bros gets that and wants to deliver.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions! That's what I'm talking about!
Every Tuesday at 8:35, we talk with Lions linebacker Jimmy Rolder.
Lions in trouble and don't. Jimmy Rolder had the fumble recovery on the first possession. A lot of sack here.
What's the mood of the team? What's the challenge with the next opponent? And what's his rookie year taught him?
An interception. This time it's Jimmy Rolder.
Lions linebacker Jimmy Rolder every Tuesday morning on X's and Bros, brought to you by Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort.
What's up, Michigan? You're listening to Shep. Don't forget the Huge Show later today at 3 on the Michigan Sports Network.
Welcome back into X's and Bros. I'm your host, Andy McDonald, today, in for Matt, who he's definitely listening, guys. Don't kid yourself. He's out there making sure that I'm delivering to you guys, and I'm happy to have one of the best pros in this business out there listening to me right now. So that means a lot to me. But obviously, last segment we were talking about the Detroit Red Wings and just the Simon Evanson report about his agent not really knowing who to talk to right now in this organization because they don't have a general manager. Still don't have a general manager. Haven't had a general manager since July 15th. And you're still trying to figure out what's going on with that. And it's not only just the fans wondering because we're close to the situation. Obviously, the fans are paying attention to that kind of stuff. And the team is obviously trying to make a decision of where to go with the future. But how about the rest of the league? Obviously Dylan Larkin was this big trade chip, okay? And, I think a lot of people are wondering, are the Red Wings even going to trade him at this point? When it first happened, it was, what can you get for him? This is a guy that is, he's won gold with USA. He's a good center. He's a great player. What can you get for him? Well, obviously that didn't happen, and part of it is because of his trade list. He's got the Florida Panthers, Minnesota Wild, Vegas Golden Knights, Dallas Stars. And Dallas Stars he added a little bit later. If that's all you're offering and they know what they're going to get, they're not going to just give you everything that you want for it when they know that you're desperate to make that trade. So I think some people are wondering, even if this move from Yzerman or whoever, if this was a reason to, try to reconcile with Dylan Larkin to keep him here as a Red Wing. He has no choice but to still be a Red Wing. He's got 5 years left on his contract. So if they don't trade him, he's going to be here. Now, I guess he could sit out per se, or have an ankle injury, or whatever it might be to keep him on the bench. But I don't think that that's going to be the case. I think he's going to suit up and play for the Red Wings in this camp coming up here in September. But you don't know what the vibe's going to be, and it obviously is going to be an awkward situation. I'm sure the Red Wings at least tried to meet his request and move on from it. Steve said as much when he did have his press conference after they came out. He said that he did request the trade. They've tried, but he wants to do what's best for the Red Wings moving forward. Obviously, it's not his decision to make anymore, but I'm sure he still has some sort of influence on everything going on there right now. And they didn't make the trade, so he's still on this team. What do other teams in the league think about this? What do other teams in the league think about the Detroit Red Wings not having a general manager, not having somebody to go to talk to about these kind of, situations? It's going to be hard to imagine that they can make any kind of deal at this point, going forward, just because of that whole situation. But the Red Wings are a bit of a mess right now, and you're obviously, as a fan, still trying to figure it out. The league's still trying to figure it out. Everybody's trying to figure out what's going on with that front office and what decision's going to be made. I'm sure at some point here we'll be hearing soon, but it would not shock me at all at this point if they went into camp, which is coming up here in just a couple of weeks, if they went into the camp without a general manager yet. It's it's stunning, but that's kind of where it's at right now. And then it'll be all about the talks. If Larkin is at camp, does he keep the C on his chest? Who has the talk with him to move on from that if they want to make that decision going forward? Is it the team that does it? Is it Todd McClellan? Is Todd McClellan going to be is he going to be the coach? You think at this point, right? They can't move on from Todd McClellan this close to the season. He's got to be the coach going forward. These are the kind of things that's just like the more you think about it and the more you dig into it, it's shocking that it ever got to this point with an organization that's so proud of its hockey past and everything that's happened with it. It's shocking that it's ever got to this point, but that's where we're at with it. But I want to switch gears a little bit here on X's and Bros in the end of the 6 o'clock hour here. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it. Trying to move into the Detroit Pistons here a little bit because obviously, why not? Every single Detroit team seems to have a saga going on recently. Obviously, the Tarek Skubal one came to a halt with the Tigers, but he's about to come back to Detroit this weekend and play with his new team, the Los Angeles Dodgers, against the Tigers this weekend. So that's going to be interesting at that. And then there's more for us to talk about there. So maybe it technically isn't done with Tarek Skubal yet. And I'm sure we'll be hearing more this offseason on if there's any chance they're going to sign him or something when he goes into free agency. But nevertheless, the Detroit Pistons and Jalen Duren, it's been a situation all summer. This is probably the one you're the most confident in that was going to work itself out. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs with the Detroit Lions was the other one. That one did work itself out, which I think most Lions fans are happy about and understand the move because you have to have Jahmyr Gibbs that offense. Jalen Duren in the postseason was not somebody that the Pistons needed on their offense. There's there's no question about that. They struggled with him at all postseason. He had some moments in the Cleveland series where he looked a little bit better, but he struggled pretty much the whole Orlando series on the defensive glass, offensive glass, and just scoring points in general. And that's where I think, a lot of Pistons fans struggle with him asking for as much money as he's asking. He thinks he probably deserves a max contract, which to me is weird because, we had Hunter Patterson, who's the beat writer for the Detroit Pistons in the show just a couple of weeks ago, kind of tell us about a side conversation that he had with him coming off of the core where, he understood that he didn't play up to his standard in the playoffs and understood that it wasn't enough and everything else. But then you come in the offseason and he still wants this much money. Now, I need to put myself in that situation. Okay, if I was the player that had that much talent, which, gosh, everybody knows that I'm not that good at basketball. But if I did have that kind of ability and I was in that position, I would probably try to think of myself as the best too, because you always want to believe in yourself, right? But when it comes to this kind of stuff, I feel like you have to be a realist. And the Pistons still have been reportedly, offering him, it seems like a decent amount of money, but we've now seen that it's been reported that the Pistons are expected to be the team that does, sign him even after this delay. And multiple reports have had it that it could be around $160 million over 4 years. For me, that's a lot of money for a guy that couldn't score you double-digit points at that point in the playoffs. Now I understand. Okay, 82 games matter, right? He had a great regular season, and I'm not going to discount that. I don't want to discount that at all because he did play for them. And when Cade Cunningham got hurt during the regular season, he was a big factor in what kept them going and what kept them afloat and gave them the number 1 seed in the East, and that's important. But I think the other key part to remember is the postseason play is different. Okay, everybody has their opinions in the NBA with all the rest days during the regular season, and what the regular season really means compared to the. Don't get me for 82 games. If you put up those kind of numbers that Jalen Duren did, he deserves to ask for a pretty hefty contract. It feels like at that point. The thing is though, nobody else has been offering him that kind of money, so it kind of felt like the Pistons were the team that. All of a sudden, or at least in this Jalen Duren situation, they're the team that has the shoe up on him, I guess, if you want to put it that way, because nobody else wants to pay him that kind of money. It's just gotten so far that you wonder what's even going to come of it. Is he going to have a terrible attitude if he doesn't get the deal he wants? You'd think that he'd have to play, his hardest either way and at least put on a face that he is happy to be there, because even if he wants to go into free agency, which I think if you do not sign him to the deal that he wants, you have a good chance to lose him in free agency the next offseason. I'd feel like you have to think that he's going to give his best effort this season no matter what one more time for the Pistons, because he wants to prove that he is better than what he was to end last season in the playoffs. And I think that's the issue right now. That's what a lot of fans are having a tough time with. If you're the Pistons, would you do this? I would be more than happy to take your calls or text on that. You can text Sports Radio to 2100, or you can call the Meyer hotline at 866-838-4843. I'm just trying to figure it out too. It's that point. I think the other part at this point, what I want to know from Pistons fans and what I'm trying to talk about myself is, obviously the Pistons didn't make the huge splash move this offseason. If they do sign Jalen Duren to this kind of contract, it feels like that kind of money. It is like a splash move per se, right? Like that would be, you're paying somebody that much money, you're putting an investment in them going forward. They're going to develop, that they're going to turn into more than what they were right now when it comes to Jalen Duren. He's still so young, just 22 years old. I think that you want that to, at that point, if you want that contract to happen and the Pistons do sign him, you would hope that he's going to be that star going forward that can play next to Cade Cunningham. If you want my opinion on that, I don't believe that he is that guy. I don't believe that going forward he's going to become anything worth, some of the names that were thrown out there that the Pistons talked to this summer. Okay. And obviously some of these players are older and they play different positions, but Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, just other players that the Pistons talked to, even LeBron James, it was never a reality that he was coming to Detroit, in my opinion, but just those kind of things. Jaylen Brown, there was talks about that, possibly being a deal that was going to be signed. Some of those names, to me, are worlds and above what Jalen Duren is. And obviously, if he doesn't get the max contract, it's not like they would have paid any of those guys maybe the max contract. But that is not maybe the same thing, but the money that they're going to pay him with the offseason that they've had so far, it feels like that would be their, quote unquote, big move. And would you be happy with that as a Pistons fan if they do sign him to that number that people are assuming or saying that is being reported that it could be true, that he would get 4 years and $160 million? That's not the move that I think that they need to make, I guess, per se. If they make that decision, I'm not going to be up in arms over here, upset about it, because I do think there's more to Jalen Duren. I do think he can be a better player. I just don't know how much better. I don't see an outside game developing at any point. That's something that I think he's more of an inside guy, gets rebounds. He is not. The one thing I cannot stand when Pistons fans talk about, Jalen Duren, is that they compare him to Andre Drummond. He's just a dunk specialist. He's way more than that, man. Come on. The season that he had this year, he is way more than that. You got to give him a lot more credit than that. But at the end of the day, I just wonder how much money he's worth. And the question is, if they did get Jalen Duren and they keep him on this team, which is expected to happen, obviously the Pistons added Isaiah Joe from the Thunder, who is a three-point specialist. You like it. He can shoot from around 40% outside, and you're hoping he can keep that number up. And then John Collins, who was obviously basically the younger replacement for Tobias Harris, it feels like. They both have their stats, their statistics, if you look them up, are basically the same side by side in a lot of categories. But John Collins is just the younger version of it. I don't have a problem with either one of those moves. I think they're both significant moves. I think they're going to make this team a lot better. This team was the number 1 seed in the East last year. Regardless of what you want to think about them, regardless of what you think of the regular season of the NBA, they were the number 1 seed in the East. And it's like people don't even talk about them anymore. It's like people just think that the teams that – I understand it, okay? You got teams that make moves like that and add onto their teams. Obviously, the Sixers are a team that people are going to talk about, okay? Because they obviously have added LeBron James, and they still have Tyrese Maxey and Paul George. They have an interesting team over there. It'll be interesting to see how that all works out. The Boston Celtics, sure, they lose Jaylen Brown to Philly, who was the key add to the Sixers. They lose Jaylen Brown to him, but they still have Jason Tatum, and they still they still have enough players and talent over there that they could make a run. The Knicks obviously just won the championship. We don't really need to talk on that. Jalen Brunson proved himself in the postseason that he can be a winner, and he can do it. Karl Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, list goes on. They have a really good team. The point that and the Orlando Magic even is a team that you probably want to watch out for, because they took the Pistons to Game 7, and they're young too, by the way. They're only going to get better. There's some good teams in the East. There's a lot of reason to believe that the Pistons could have a big drop in the standings. I don't think there's any way they drop out of the playoffs, picture with how many teams make the playoffs in the East, but they could drop down to the 5, 6. I don't see it being impossible. Or do you think that if the Pistons re-sign Jalen Duren, is that enough to make them, hold that number 1 stature in the East? Is that enough for the Pistons to do that? I don't think so. I think they're going to struggle to be the number 1 team in this conference again. I do think that they will be a top 4 team in this conference again going into the postseason, and that doesn't mean that they can't make a deeper run. I mean, it doesn't. I do think that being the number 1 seed isn't everything, because having home court truly isn't everything. I mean, the Pistons will show you that. It took them forever to even just win a home playoff game. 20 years whatever it was, and even last year they couldn't win one. They won a couple on the road against the Knicks. This 2 years ago, I guess I should say now. And then this past year, they struggled to get that win at home at first too, until they finally got it off their chest. So it really isn't everything to be the 1 seed per se. I still think the Pistons can make a run if they did make it to the playoffs. At that point, anything can happen. But yeah, that's where I think a lot of people are at right now. Is Jalen Duren going to even be enough for this team to make a run for this season coming up? Because you do want to capitalize right now. You got Cade Cunningham playing at an extremely high level. You have a young core with Ron Holland and Jalen Duren being in this team still that are playing well. You added John Collins and Isaiah Joe. You still like some of the pieces that you have coming off the bench in this team. How deep can they go? How good is this team going forward? That's the question that we have. The Mitch Lyonswealth poll question of the day. Just want to remind all you guys about that again. Which up-and-coming Tigers player not named Kevin McGonigal are you tuning in to watch for the remainder of the season? Is it Hao-Yu Lee? Is it Jackson Jobe? Is it Troy Melton? Or is it Max Clark? You can vote on X. We also are streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, and X itself, so you can make sure you tune in on any of those. But yeah, we're getting into some of that Pistons talk, and it's basketball seems so far away, but the offseason's still here, and it comes up quicker than you think. Everybody gets so excited for football, and rightfully so. I'm excited for football. Week 0 this week. I don't know if anybody else is excited. I got my golf trip coming up this weekend with my friends, and I am excited for that, man. I cannot tell you enough. We're going up north and playing a couple courses up there. Dream and Nightmare. If you guys have the chance to look into them, they're great. We're going up there, and I'm sure we're gonna be watching some Week 0 college football. Where you also got Tarek Skubal coming back to play against the Tigers this week, and there's a lot of good sports action. But nevertheless, the Pistons are still something that people are thinking about because it feels like there was never the giant splash made this offseason. Would it be enough if Jalen Durham was signed to that much money? Is that where you want the money to go? That's the question that I think a lot of people are asking, and it's an important one to ask. But between that and the Detroit Red Wings and Dylan Larkin still not knowing what's going on with that situation, I think you're happy as a Lions fan going into the season because they just straightened everything out right there with Jahmyr Gibbs, and you know what you're getting out of that backfield now. That offense should still be a high power offense, and you're excited about that. And then obviously, we realize the Tigers season's probably getting close to coming to an end here with where they're at in the standings. But you never know. Don't want to count anything out with the team that did what they did a couple Septembers ago. That's for sure. But nevertheless, the Tigers did take care of business last night. They win 4-1, and they did the job with Jackson Jobe going 4 1/3. Max Clark hits a big 2-run home run that put them ahead in the game. And they also got a big hit from Hyu Lee late to extend the lead. The bullpen doesn't give up any runs. Bullpen doesn't give up any runs. I know you're going to stop yourself to wonder if that's even possible with this baseball team, but it is possible because it did happen. So we'll see what they're able to do if they're able to win a home series for the first time in a while today when they do take on Tampa Bay Rays at 1:10 this afternoon. They got Troy Melton on the bump, so it'll be interesting to see if they can get the job done there. But yeah, coming up on X's and Bros, we're gonna have a couple guests joining us here in the near future. My buddy Dean Helsrath, he's gonna join us at 7:18, talk some high school football. That's coming up, kicks off Thursday night. We're also gonna have John Vanderwall. If you listen to the Huge Show, which plays on this station from 3 to 6 Monday through Friday, you're definitely familiar with John Vanderwall. He'll be coming on to give us some Tigers thoughts here, and I'm excited to get into it with him on that. And then at 8:35, we have Jeff Francoeur on the show, who called the Dodgers and Braves last night. Interested to see what he has to say just going forward. I love to get the outsider perspective on the Tarek Skubal trade and everything that happened with that and what he's seen from that. I want to hear what he has to say about the Braves, too, because obviously he does some calling for them as well. So I'm excited to get going on all that stuff, and hopefully you guys are able to listen to that. We'll have Jeff Francoeur at 8:35. John Vanderwall at 7:35 and Dean Helsrath at 7:18. So appreciate you guys tuning in. When we come back, we'll get back into a little bit more of the Tigers stuff and an interesting comment from Dan Campbell. I don't know if you guys happen to tune in to what's going on with college football right now with players coming back from the pros. I think this is one you're gonna want to tune in for. That's for sure. You're listening to X's and Bros.
In my pro football days, the key to winning was a great game plan. It's no different when it comes to your retirement. Hi, this is Mitch Lyons from Mitch Lyons Wealth. Is stock market turbulence making you question whether your plan is okay? Do the ups and downs of your retirement account give you the jitters? Are you protected against the next market downdraft? As you approach retirement, you're entering the retirement red zone. Like in football, the game changes in the red zone. There's less time for mistakes, and you need to see your blind spots and protect yourself. Is your retirement safe? Let's find out today. Let's create a game plan together that will protect, grow, and win retirement. You've worked hard to save what you have. Let's make sure you keep it. 30 to 40 years of saving for retirement is worth a 15-minute call to make sure you've done all that you can to protect your retirement. Call Mitch Lyons Wealth today at 844-867-8335. That's 844-867-8335. Or go to MitchLyonsWealth.com. Investment advisory services are offered to MLW Advisory Services, DBA Mitch Lyons Wealth, a state-registered investment advisor.
Huge here for my good friend Josh Garvey and the team at Dorn Mayhew, West Michigan, one of the world's top accounting, CPA, and business firms. Their worldwide headquarters are in Troy, Michigan, on the east side of the state. And Josh and his team connect with all the sports fans and businesses across Michigan. They bring you John Beeline on the Huge Show. They bring you Lomas Brown during the Lion season. They are a top shelf team when it comes to growth and understanding what their clients need. and mix in when we do the Beat Huge contests or the NCAA March Madness brackets. Thank you, Josh Garvey, for what you do for the Huge Show and the Michigan Sports Network. Simple and easy. Just find Dorn Mayhew on all the social networks or just Google Dorn Mayhew and find out how they can help your business. And again, a special thanks to Josh Garvey and the Dorn Mayhew team in West Michigan. Huge here for the Carmody brothers and all the Buffalo Wild Wings locations in Michigan. The football season is here, and you're home for the Lions, Michigan, Michigan State, Central, Western, Eastern, and GLIAC football. All the Buffalo Wild Wings locations in Michigan. Great food, cold beverages, and football all season long, happening now at all the Buffalo Wild Wings locations in Michigan. Coming up later today at 3 on the Huge Show on the Michigan Sports Network, I'll deliver huge opinions on everything you're talking about. Make sure you listen weekly to our Moving Ferris Forward interviews with Ferris President Bill Pink and other leaders who are moving Ferris forward. Find out more about Big Rapids and Ferris and what they have to offer at ferris.edu. Huge here for Van Andel Institute Purple Community. Now, they're a grassroots fundraising network powered by the volunteers who support VAI's mission to improve health now and in the future. Learn more at purplecommunity.org.
Welcome back into X's and Bros. Sandy McDonald kicking off the 7 o'clock hour here. Thank you guys for listening here on the Michigan Sports Network. We appreciate it. Talking plenty of Tigers, Wings, Pistons. We hit all three there in the first hour. But want to get some Lions because obviously people are excited about that coming up. But we're gonna stick with the we will get to the Lions at some point in this show. I want to get though to the big topic yesterday. I feel like that we kind of saw floating around everywhere, and that was what's going on in college football. When is this not an issue lately? When is it not a subject of discussion when it comes to college football, having something else going on with the NCAA that absolutely stuns you that it ever got to this point? Well, that's where I'm at right now when it comes to the NCAA. I mean, this is somewhat happening in college basketball. Okay, this has been happening for a while where players can go to the NBA draft, go to the combine, get advice, whatever, and then come back to college basketball if they don't think the advice is going to get them drafted where they want. It's not like it's actually extremely unheard of, but when it comes to college football, it's pretty nuts because of the whole draft process and the way that it goes for, the professional sports. The NCAA and LSU has a couple players now that everybody kind of was talking about yesterday that's coming back after being at a pro camp. They're coming back to being in college. I think that is absolutely stunning, and it kind of just makes you wonder, like, how can you, get to that point at all? And it's kind of a subject where everybody, I mean, it seems like everybody's asking why it would happen, but yet somehow the NCAA does let it happen. The Big Ten did say that they wouldn't allow, players to come back if they had went, and done stuff professionally. They would not be allowed to come back. And Ryan Day talked about it, of course, yesterday. And he mentioned that, if he said Ohio State, would have to think about it if it became a thing, but he doesn't like the idea of it, but he would have to look into it if it became a thing. So I'm sure that there would not be no room for change there. But what I found funny yesterday is, everybody's getting asked about this, right? Dan Campbell met with reporters yesterday, and you're probably wondering, why am I mentioning Dan Campbell when it comes to college football, and why would he be talking about it? Well, Dave Burkett yesterday asked a question towards the end of the press conference about the whole situation with players coming back to the pros, and I really thought it was interesting what Dan had to say about it. So here it is for you guys.
I'm staying out of that. I have no comment. I don't even know what to do with that. I think that's look, from our perspective, it's crazy because you give a guy an opportunity. You're like, hey man, this guy's got room to grow, and is he going to make it? Is he not? It's close. And then they leave. You try to develop a guy that just took off. I don't know. But you put yourself in their shoes, I can kind of see that too. If I'm that guy, that player, and I don't think I'm going to make it, and I don't know, man. It's crazy.
It really is crazy. He's right about that. And of course, you just love the Dan Campbell reaction there of him kind of chuckling about it a little bit to start, just like what's even going on right now? Because I feel like it's crazy. I mean, obviously Dan Campbell's involved with football, right? And even he doesn't know what to make of it. But I like how he sees it from both perspectives, because it is interesting. Like if you put yourself, this is where it's so hard. Okay, the NIL was the first topic with all this, with players making money and the obnoxious amount of money that some of them make, and it is ridiculous to a certain extent. But I've always been in the belief that players should make money in college. I mean, when you work in sports as long as I have now, and you see some of the stuff that players go through at the college level to practice. When I was in college, I was able to, hold a job, and, I was able to do things to make a little bit of money for myself. Like they have practice all the time, man. They have practice all the time. So I understand why they're required to be at a bunch of different other school events and stuff like that. And to a certain extent, sports like football, basketball, they make a lot of money for the school. And it's understandable why, they would get paid money. Now, does it need to be donors donating this much money and making people feel like they're basically a part of the NFL? No, probably not. But what I will say is that with this whole thing with players coming back to college after they've been to the pro rank, and went through the draft process and everything, it is crazy. Because if you're in Dan Campbell's position, you have a guy that you're thinking, maybe he is going to make it, but then he decides, when he's probably going to be a practice squad player, he decides that he's going to go back. You can appreciate how Dan can see that from both sides, because I can see it that way too. I feel like if you're a player at that level, you don't think you're going to make the team, you have a much safer bet going back to college and maybe being on the same team. Maybe you go to, do another team, whatever it might be, but you have a better bet to be a starter on that team and get more playing time and let more people see what you're able to do so people believe in you. And then maybe next year when you go into the draft, you're not worrying about, being on the practice squad. You're getting drafted to be a player that's, going to be on the team at least. You know what I mean? So that's where you got to be able to understand it from a player's perspective, that it's a safe bet for them. You can understand why they would want it, right? That makes sense to me. I do get that part of it, but it is just a crazy concept at this level of sports. Like, what has even happened to college athletics? I mean, do they go to class? Or is it just everybody makes a bunch of money? They can go pro, they can come back. The change is very hard to understand. And to me, it's not about not understanding what the player wants there to be able to come back to college. It's how did it ever even get to this point in the first place? How did we get to this point with the NCAA and with football? How do they not have a leg to stand on to stop some of the things that have been happening that are ruining college sports to a certain extent? Now, I'm with Matt Shepard. Obviously, he's the host of the show. I'm filling in for him today on X's and Bros. He'll tell you that he thinks that when it comes to the college football product, it still is pretty good, and that people are still watching it every weekend. It's not going to. People will threaten all the time to say they're not going to watch it because of these kind of crazy things you hear every single week. It feels like with something new coming out, they threaten they're not going to watch it, but the truth is on Saturday they're still going to watch it. I agree with that 100%. It hasn't. I mean, for me, I love football, guys. I don't know if you know this, but I do like sports, and I am talking to you guys about them right now. I obviously still watch college football. I watch it every weekend. It's not going to change how I view it. I'm a proud Chippewa. I love keeping up with them. I love watching Michigan State. It's a huge part of it. That rivalry in the state, it's one of the biggest things in my whole life. Everybody takes the time out of a certain Saturday in the fall and make sure they watch that game, right? And then Michigan, Ohio State, other rivalries to certain extents, they come to the same kind of thing. It's a big part of your weekend. So people aren't going to change that about it no matter what these players are doing. It feels like at the end of the day, it is just a game to them. They can hang up the game after it ends. The players can't. That's why they care about making money. That's why they care about having this decision of maybe being able to come back to college if they go pro. This is their life. That's what they do. And I think that's sometimes what people need to realize when it comes to those kind of situations. But I do have to wonder how it has gotten to this point and this out of control. And if you were to ask me, how does the NCAA dig themselves out of this hole? I don't think I have an answer for you. I don't know what they do at this point. It feels like it's only going to go the other direction. It's only going to turn into more of the mini NFL, if you want to, per se, if you want to call it that. And I understand why that bugs people because, conferences and conference titles and all that kind of stuff, rivalry games, everything, that's a part of tradition to college football, and that's the part that people have a hard time keeping up with, all the big changes that happen, not just in college football, but all around college athletics. So it's a very interesting topic, and it's pretty crazy. But it is one of those things because it's stunning. So, but yeah, when we come back, I'll make sure that we're gonna have Dean Halsrath join the show. He's gonna get a little bit of high school football information for us. I'm fired up about it starting. It starts back up on Thursday. That's at least in this area. There might even be some games tonight. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me. It's kind of all week. It feels like there's a lot of high school football games coming up, and he's going to give us some of the inside information on that. Following that, we'll have John Vanderwall at 7:35 to talk some Detroit Tigers. Then Jeff Rancour will have in the 8 o'clock hour at the end of it. He'll talk about last night. He was at the Braves and Dodgers game. He called that game. He'll give us some information on that, and we'll talk to him about that. So I'm very excited for that conversation going forward. So you're listening to X's and Bros on the Michigan Sports Network.
Our state is Mecca for golf, and one of Michigan's crown jewels is Tullymore and St. Ives, 2 world-class championship courses in one charming and beautiful location. The golf is challenging but fair. You're going to use every club in your bag. But let me tell you what makes Tullymore really special. It's the people. From the wait staff to the bartenders to the pro shop and the management, their sole purpose is to give you a memorable experience, and they do. Go to TullymoreGolf.com today and experience a Michigan masterpiece.
The Freddie the Pizza Man Foundation is dedicated to providing support to families and Michigan schools touched by autism. We invite you to join us in supporting these families and schools by making a donation at freddythepizzaman.com. With your donation, you can help provide essential resources that can make a real impact. Visit freddythepizzaman.com to make a donation and to learn more about the foundation's mission. That's FREDI thepizzaman.com. Together, we can make a difference.
Huge here for all the ABC warehouse locations in Michigan. Now, if you're looking for the best prices on TVs, furniture, appliances, mattresses, and more, you need to go to abcwarehouse.com. You can shop there and also shop in person at all ABC warehouse locations across Michigan. For the one close to you, go to abcwarehouse.com. Best deals on TVs, appliances, furniture, and mattresses at all ABC warehouse locations in Michigan. Huge here for Van Andel Institute Purple Community. Now, they're a grassroots fundraising network powered by the volunteers who support VAI's mission to improve health now and in the future. Learn more at purplecommunity.org.
You can't get enough Lions talk. X's and Bros gets that and wants to deliver.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions! That's what I'm talking about!
Every Tuesday at 8:35, we talk with Lions linebacker Jimmy Rolder.
There's a trouble and dumped. Jimmy Rolder had the fumble recovery on the first possession. Allowed a sack here.
What's the mood of the team? What's the challenge with the next opponent? And what's his rookie year target?
Interception! This time it's Jimmy Rolder!
Lions linebacker Jimmy Rolder every Tuesday morning on X's and Bros, brought to you by Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort.
Make sure you listen weekly to our Moving Ferris Forward interviews with Ferris President Bill Pink and other leaders who are moving Ferris forward. Find out more about Big Rapids and Ferris and what they have to offer at ferris.edu.
All right, welcome back in to X's and Bros, everybody. My name is Andy McDonald. I'm your host today on X's and Bros, filling in for Matt. And this segment, I'm very excited. We're gonna have Dean Hellsworth join us on the show here, one of my good buddies who I've been covering high school football with for a long, long time. It feels like at this point, like I'm only getting older with it. But Dean, how we doing?
Good. How are we doing today, Andy?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Dean does a lot of work for Wood TVA. He does. We both do a podcast together on that. It's called Behind the Frenzy. You can check it out on woodtva.com or it's on YouTube. And Dean's getting all geared up for the first week of high school football here. He's been writing plenty of preview stories and everything on it. I guess, Dean, what is? I guess the first thing I just want to ask you is, what does high school football, I guess, mean to the people not just in West Michigan but in the state of Michigan?
I mean, it's kind of kick off to fall, right? Like everybody kind of looks forward to high school football. They kind of count down the days. And this week, there's just so much anticipation throughout the state. You know, everybody's 0-0. And so high expectations, you know, for all the teams going into this week because, you know, it's a clean slate and, you know, everybody's looking to do the best that they can.
For sure. Obviously, we specialize in a lot of the teams here in West Michigan and cover a lot of the teams in this area, but not just in this area, but I guess what games are you looking forward to this weekend? I don't know, week. There's so many games this week. What are you looking forward to this week when it comes to high school football?
I mean, for me, I think one of the top matchups, in the state has to be Rockford at Saline. Both programs, obviously, lots of tradition. You know, Saline lost to Cass Tech last year in the regional finals. But have had numerous winning seasons. Rockford the same way. You know, I don't think you can go through and see a year that Rockford has had a losing record. They've kind of stumbled. I'd say, you know, stumbled is maybe a weird word, but they've had 3 losses the last couple of years and lost to Hudsonville as far as the OK Red Championship has gone. But they are, you know, one of the premier teams in the state every single year, and it's always a good matchup for both those teams to play each other.
For sure, no question about it. I love you listening to Dean Hellsworth here on the Michigan Sports Network on X's and Bros. Dean, I guess when it comes to these matchups, it seems like more and more in the first couple of weeks of the season, a lot of high school teams in the state are starting to go outside the state and play other teams. What do you think leads to that, and why, or do you like it? I guess, do you like that teams are doing that now to start the year?
Yeah, I think it's great. You know, you're going to have your conference matchups. You know, starting maybe week 3, week 4, potentially, depending on the size of your conference. So I think it's great to kind of go and play other teams, you know, from the other side of the state that you're not typically going to see probably until, you know, state semifinals, state finals, things like that. It kind of gives you a good gauge of how you kind of match up against, you know, the west side of the state or the east side of the state. It's interesting you say that. It says Kennewick Hills plays DeWitt, and they're playing at Wayne State actually tomorrow. DeWitt, obviously, as we know, defending state champs in Division III, you know, scored over 700 points last year. And, you know, obviously a lot of stuff going on with Kennewick Hills right now, but that's going to be a really good matchup too. It's just kind of a sign of, you know, two really good teams squaring off in week 1.
For sure. That's a good point. Listening to that, it's like, I guess, you know, obviously you know a lot about the games in this area, and for the people here at our 96.1, the game station that are listening here in West Michigan, what are some of the other games that people should be watching out for in the West Michigan area?
I mean, Hudsonville, you know, goes to Byron Center and plays the Bulldogs. You know, Hudsonville's a team that has, you know, really taken off in the last 2 years under Coach Brett Sandy. You know, 2 years ago they went to Ford Field, played in a state championship game, and they followed that up last year with 11 wins. But they're undefeated before losing to East Kentwood in the Division I regional final. Like I said, Coach Sandy's done a great job. They've won back-to-back OK Red championships, which in a conference like the OK Red that was dominated by Rockford for so long, Hudsonville's kind of now taken that mantle there at the top of the standings.
Yeah, I can agree with that one. The OK Red is definitely a conference that's tough to play in. Do you have any other matchups that you're looking forward to outside of the West Michigan area this weekend?
Yeah, you know, I think a big one is Belleville at Grand Blanc. You know, both teams are kind of ranked, according to the D-Zone, they're kind of both ranked inside the top 20. Belleville, I think, has a lot to prove this year. Obviously, Bryce Underwood's former team last year, they had high expectations, and they lost in the first round to Woodhaven. So Belleville's a team that's looking to get back to that level of success that they've kind of established over the years. And they got 3 offensive weapons coming back. Trey Britton, Kendall Franklin, and Trenton Foley are ones to watch for that team.
For sure. Obviously, this is going to be an interesting year, too, with the NIL thing for high school coming into play a little bit. It's not quite to the college level by any extent. Nobody's making that much money. But when it comes to players making money at this level, I guess, obviously it's like I think they have to be with like a local business or something around those standards. It's not like it can just be, you're not just getting a giant donor handing you a huge paycheck or anything like that. What does it do for a player? And do you like the move, or do you wish they would have stayed away from it?
I mean, I think I wish they would have stayed away from it. I think they should have leave that to college. I kind of understand what the MHSAA is doing as far as that goes with some of your bigger names, being able to profit a little bit off of, their name, likeness, image, all that, because of the stuff that they do, on the athletic field. But I also think gear, toward things outside of the sports that you can definitely, for those who kind of promote themselves with music or whatever the case may be. So I think I understand what they're trying to do with getting everybody involved in this, but I think it should have stayed in college.
For sure. I understand that completely. Dean Holsworth joining us here on X's and Bros on a Wednesday morning, leading into the high school football season coming up here. He does a lot of good work for Wood TV, the NBC affiliate here in Grand Rapids. Make sure you check out his stuff online. He's got a couple of preview stories out there right now. We also did a top 10 list. Him and I combined on that together to cover some of the stuff that Alan True from On3 and Rivals that ranks some of the top players here in the area. Make sure you check out those stories. Dean, one more question before I go. I guess what games are you going to be at this weekend, and which ones are you? I guess which one's going to be the most exciting for you that you're going to be at?
I mean, for me, I'm going up to Grant and Newaygo tomorrow to cover games up there. And then I think an interesting game that I have on Friday, I have Belding at Kellogg'sville. And Kellogg'sville is a team that has a second-year coach that's done a really, really good job over there. Last year, they made the playoffs, and it's an up-and-coming program that really struggled for a long time. So I'm really looking to see Kellogg'sville. They're actually ranked right now, honorable mention, in Division 5, which we know is loaded with West Catholic and Catholic Central. So looking forward to see the Rockets of Kellogg'sville and seeing if they can take off this year.
He's Dean Holsworth, everybody. He's a really good reporter for Wood TVA. He does a lot of good work when it comes to the high school football side of things, and you should definitely give him a follow and follow some of his work because it's really good. Dean, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me, Andy. Appreciate it.
All right, guys, that's Dean. Happy to have him on. Yeah, make sure you give him a follow. I'm excited for everything to get kicked off this weekend. It's going to be awesome. It's high school football, man. Friday night, that's what kicks off your Saturday. That's what gets you started to get to Saturday, then to Sunday. That's the start of football, and for a lot of people, it's really important to watch a lot of those games. And I can speak obviously more on this side of the state, but I've covered a lot of state championship games, and I've been down in that area a lot for some games later in the playoffs over the 10 years I've been covering high school football now. And it's the talent pool is only getting better here in this side of the state, man. I some of the players that we went out to, to feature on the west side of the state here, it's been a lot of fun to get to know some of them and a couple, different ones that are going to bigger schools, and going to some of those other colleges that are Division I and high up in Division I. So it's exciting, and we're lucky to have Dean on to get that. So coming back, we're going to have John Vanderwall for you in the 7:35 segment. We're going to have him coming on to talk about the Detroit Tigers and what went down the trade deadline and get some his opinions on why they should have made the move for Terry Skubal or why they shouldn't have made the move. I'm sure some of you that follow him, Vandy on Tigers, probably already have a little bit of an idea of what his opinion is on that. I'm excited to talk to him and get that going. So if you keep up with that, you can stream us on Facebook, YouTube, and X. You can also text Sports Radio to 2100. You can call the Meyer hotline at 866-838-4843. You are listening to X's and Bros on the Michigan Sports Network.
In my pro football days, the key to winning was a great game plan. It's no different when it comes to your retirement. Hi, this is Mitch Lyons from Mitch Lyons Wealth. Is stock market turbulence making you question whether your plan is okay? Do the ups and downs of your retirement account give you the jitters? Are you protected against the next market downdraft? As you approach retirement, you're entering the retirement red zone. Like in football, the game changes in the red zone. There's less time for mistakes, and you need to see your blind spots and protect yourself. Is your retirement safe? Let's find out today. Let's create a game plan together that will protect, grow, and win retirement. You've worked hard to save what you have. Let's make sure you keep it. 30 to 40 years of saving for retirement is worth a 15-minute call to make sure you've done all that you can to protect your retirement. Call Mitch Lyons Wealth today at 844-867-8335. That's 844-867-8335. Or go to MitchLyonsWealth.com. Investment advisory services are offered to MLW Advisory Services, DBA Mitch Lyons Wealth, a state-registered investment advisor.
The Freddie the Pizza Man Foundation is dedicated to providing support to families and Michigan schools touched by autism. We invite you to join us in supporting these families and schools by making a donation at FreddieThePizzaMan.com. With your donation, you can help provide essential resources that can make a real impact. Visit FreddieThePizzaMan.com to make a donation and to learn more about the foundation's mission. That's FREDI, Together, we can make a difference.
Huge here for the incredible Crystal Mountain Resort in Thompsonville, Michigan. If you've never experienced the mountain, it's unbelievable. They offer up 36 holes of championship golf, Betsy Valley, Mountain Ridge, accommodations, a ton of choices. Go to crystalmountain.com, see everything for yourself. One of the top spas in America. They can handle businesses, small groups, big groups, your buddies, the ladies, and more. Book your getaway now at crystalmountain.com. That's crystalmountain.com. What's up, Michigan? You're listening to my good friend Shep. The Huge Show is coming up later today at 3, right here on the Michigan Sports Network.
Welcome back to X's and Bros. This is Andy McDonald. This hour is presented to you by Meyer. We are proud this hour to be joined by a good friend of the station, John Vanderwall. It's Vandy on Tigers on Twitter. So make sure that you give him a follow to get all of his Tigers takes. If you're not already doing that, you should be, because he's got plenty of them, that's for sure. John, how are we doing this morning?
Good, brother. How are you?
You know, I'm not bad. We're getting through it. It's my first time hosting the show, so we're trying to do our best with that. But I'm very appreciative of you joining us to give us some of the information here that you have on the Tigers and what your feelings are about it. You know, they finally got a win last night. Not that that's not that that's going to fix everything with the 6-game losing streak and everything else, but I guess I want to start off just asking what do you think you've seen from some of the young players? I mean, I know you spent some time with the Whitecaps and stuff at different times. What have you seen from the young players in this team so far since they've kind of been called up, like Max Clark, Hao-Yu Lee, some of these players who are in the lineup every day?
Well, Hao-Yu Lee, back in April, the first time he came up, I pointed out early on that I believed he needed to play. Even though he got sent down, I said, bring this kid back up, and he's done a really good job. He's still a free swinger. He was on a roll, and the last couple of days it looked like he's swinging a lot of pitches out of the zone. But he's pretty good. He's going to be a pretty good player. You know, I'm going to let Max Clark. I want to see him for another month here. You know, he went through the highs and lows of AAA, exactly what he needed to do. And he's up here. He's playing a decent center field. He's holding his own up there, and he hit a big home run yesterday off a lefty. So tip of the hat to him. But what you do see from some of these other guys, and it's the development of players now is so bad that we're seeing guys that were, let's be honest, guys that were playing at West Michigan here last year are suddenly thrust into the big leagues. And, I mean, the Callahan kid, I'm sure he's a great kid, great guy, but he was in West Michigan last year, and now he's pinch hitting in late innings in the big leagues. You know, this kind of stuff would never have happened 10, 15 years ago. It's the way things have changed. It's why the game is really, really bad now, is that the lack of development. They've dropped 2 minor league teams, so the all organizations don't have any depth anymore. They've never really had a lot of depth in pitching, and then you take away those 2 organizations, those 2 teams, you're even less. You don't have. I mean, you don't have enough guys. Now they're going to independent league to pick up pitchers. The game is in chaos. You can see it on the field. The product isn't there, and it's a shame. It's a shame that it's gotten to this. But the Tigers are back in a rebuild now, and you can see it when you've got, you know, a third of your roster is young kids with their first time up in the big leagues. It's crazy.
Yeah, I can definitely see that part. But John Vanderwall joining us here on X's and Bros on the Michigan Sports Network. You see the Tigers are in a full rebuild. I'm interested to hear a little bit more about that. I obviously understand the trading of Tarek Skubal and Casey Mize does not signal the Tigers going in a direction to where they would be winners this season per se. But next season, I mean, you do have Troy Melton, Jackson Jobe. I mean, Framber Valdez obviously has a lot of things to figure out right now, and there's a few other things with this team that obviously need to get fixed. The bullpen is something that needs to probably be completely revamped. I can understand where you're coming from a certain extent to where there is some rebuilding to do here, but do you think it's at the same level that it was at back when they had to tear down, you know, years ago before AJ Hinch and Scott Harris and company got here? Do you think they're in a better position than they were back when they, you know, had to kind of get themselves out of when the Justin Verlander trade and Max Scherzer and all that went down?
Yeah, time will tell. You know, I believe that them making the playoffs 2 consecutive years was not in the plan. You know, the first year when they traded everyone, and also they came from nowhere in September and made the playoffs, that was unexpected. And they dumped again there, and it came back and kind of bit them. Last year, everyone was screaming about what they needed to do, and they didn't help the team last year. and they went into a continual spiral. And back in September, they were good enough had enough players that they were able to, salvage a playoff spot. This year, to me, it's a total embarrassment of what they did this year. You don't go out, and I understand to an extent some of it, but you had a bad May. I get it. But for June and July, you were one of the best teams in baseball. And you have people screaming on Twitter or X and all the social media about, this team wasn't going to make it anyway. Well, how do you know? You had one of the best records in baseball. You could have addressed your bullpen situation pretty easily. You had Job coming up. You had guys coming off the DL. It's not hard, and I laugh because there's these so-called keyboard GMs out there who think that it's very difficult to go get an arm. It's not. Actually, it's probably one of the easiest things to do because there's a lot of teams trying to get rid of salary, and there were some pretty good relievers out there. Do I know their names? I don't, because that's not my job anymore. That's the job of Harris and his professional scouts. But there's guys always out there. There's guys that you could have filled the needs of the bullpen fairly easily. You had Job coming back. You had Melton, who was back, who was pitching pretty good. You had options, and you didn't use them. And then you go out and you trade Skubal. And if you weren't gonna keep him in the playoffs or for a playoff run, then you should have traded him last winter. Mize, I can understand a little bit because going into spring this year, he was a fifth starter. I mean, that's what he was. Sure. When you have to set up guys with your forkball, your first pitch, that means you have no the consistency in the fastball. So, but he did come out. He changed his angle. He did some really good things, and he's had some injuries. So I kind of understand that. And maybe this lefty they got from San Diego will do something. I don't mind that one. But now look what we got. We got Job, who right now is a fourth, fifth starter. That's what he is. He's 86 pitches and 4 1/3. That ain't going to cut it, bro. Melton has done very well. But when you take 2 starters out and you're in the playoff hunt, that's embarrassing. That is absolutely embarrassing. I still know guys in high GM or in GMs and some other spots that they go, oh, what is this guy doing? Because you never know when you're going to make the playoffs, first of all. You can have all this, next year is going to be the year. You don't know. Sure. Your boy McDonald could go down and break his leg. God help us that it doesn't happen. He misses the whole year. You don't know what's going to happen. So when you have these playoff opportunities, you don't let them go. I mean, in the 1st of August, at one point you were leading the last spot in the wild card, and you're only a game and a half out, and then you dump everybody, and then at the end of August you say, well, it wasn't going to happen anyway. Well, you took 2 starters out of this, 2 of the most important pieces in a roster. You took 2 starters out, and now you've got to scramble. You've got the Korean All-Star Anderson, who's in the lineup. Yeah, he pitched great in Korea, but you don't have to. You throw him in as a starter. He's not even probably a fifth starter. You're arrogant enough that you get 2 guys from Korea and you think that's going to solve your bullpen problems in the wintertime. There's a lot of arrogance in this organization. Internally within other organizations, people just shake their head at what this guy's doing because you are that close to the playoffs and you were playing so well, dude. You were playing so well. And then you just cut the jugular of this whole team. You can look at Torkelson. You can look at guys on this roster, and you can look at their faces and go, man, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Riley Green, I guarantee Riley Green probably would have strapped it up and played and wrapped up that hamstring. But I'm not going to do that if you've already got rid of 2 starters. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to get healthy.
There's fair points to that to a certain extent. This is John Vanderwall joining us on the X's and Bros and the Michigan Sports Network. Most pinch hits in a single season in the major leagues. Pretty impressive stat. I hear what you're saying about Tarek Skubal and Casey Mize around the trade deadline. Obviously, that's where a lot of this stems from with where they're at now and where they're going in the future. The one thing I would say is for Shep, who can't be with us today, unfortunately, but I'm sure he would love to.
On a golf course, he's with Huge. I just waved at him.
I bet he would. Honestly, it would not shock me if that's why he's not here. That man, no matter what, is going to find a way to golf. I can tell you that much. But Yeah, his whole take on the whole thing, from what I've gathered from listening to him multiple mornings here and talking with him, is that he believes that no matter what in the offseason, the Detroit Tigers were not going to sign Tarek Skubal. There was no shot that they were going to sign him going forward, and that was pretty much the reality of it. So you'd want to get something at the deadline over nothing. He has been saying 100% they should have traded him before the season started because he feels like he would have got the highest value for them then. I guess just obviously the take that everybody wants to hear and know, I guess, why do you think it wasn't the right move? You explained a lot of why you didn't think it was the right move to make the trade right there, and obviously the Casey Mize one wasn't as big of a deal to you, but I guess if the Tigers weren't going to sign him in the offseason, because that, to me, also that does feel like the reality. They were not going to pay him in the offseason just because of the way they've acted as an age or organization as of late. I guess why would you have wanted them to keep him, just to go for the playoff push, or what's the reason?
Yes, absolutely. The fans deserve that. The fans deserve the playoff push. The fans go to the stadium and pay the ticket prices. They pay $20 for a bag of peanuts, $20 for a beer. You go in for a hot dog. The hot dog and a Coke is $15. You go in, you pay those prices. You pay the prices for the subscription to watch them during the season. You do that as a fan. That's what you do. So as an owner and as a front office, your obligation is to the fans who go and support you and pay your paycheck. So yes, that's absolutely what they should have done. You don't go and I hear the arguments. And to be frank, I'm the one who made the arguments 2 or 3 years ago. I started this, that these guys going 5 innings was dumb. These guys going 80 pitches is dumb. You're going to blow your bullpens up. They're finally realizing that. I think all of baseball is finally realizing that the propeller heads, and what I call a propeller head, is a GM who has never played the game, comes in and just tries to manage things. Well, that's what you got in Scott Harris. And I hope to God and pray every day, Tiger fans and Red Wing fans, that they don't go and put Greenberg, is that his name,
yes,
who has never played hockey or done anything, so you're going to put Harris as a.k.a. Greenberg doing the Red Wings. I mean, this stuff is ridiculous what they do.
So what I got to ask then is, so going forward, obviously the move's been made. Terry Skubal is not in the team anymore, and the reality is that he's probably never coming back. Even though he made the comments he did about hoping that they're in the conversations. If Scott Harris is still running this, it's probably not. I guess what do you want to see this organization doing going forward to make it so obviously you think they're in a rebuild. What makes the rebuild shorter, or what makes them better in a quicker amount of time? What do they need to do to make it not as painful this time around?
Starting pitching. You need starting pitching, and you got rid of it.
That is the truth.
I mean, and as a position player, I hate to say it, but it's reality. Starting pitching is the name of the game. That's what this game revolves around. That's why they were trying to save starting pitching for 5 innings, and they thought, oh, we only want them to go through the lineup twice. Well, you know what? The starting pitchers make most of the money, and they make a lot of the money in the big leagues. So, back in the day, 100, 110 pitches is kind of where they were at. Well, then all of a sudden they've dropped them down to 30. And they're like, well, we're going to save their arms. Well, you know what? None of us are Nostradamus. Nobody knows. You can look at a delivery and you can say, oh, his arm might go, it might not, who knows? But you don't know. So these gurus thought that they could change baseball. And they have with WAR and all this other stuff. But they tried to limit the pitches, and you can't do that. So my observation is you need starting pitching. And what did you do? You got rid of starting pitching.
That's fair to say. This is John Vanderwall joining us on X's and Bros here, presented by Meyer this hour. He's a frequent guest in the Huge Show from 3 to 6 p.m., which you can listen to every day, Monday through Friday. John, I guess the question is then this year, obviously, that there's still, the reality is, even after losing 6 games in a row, there's still only 4.5 games out of the wild card.
Crazy, isn't it?
It is. It sure is, because is this the worst American League you've ever seen in your lifetime?
No, I don't think. No, it's not. So here's what you have to you have to really look at is they're not playing as well. I get it, but from the best team in baseball, and I got to kind of take the Dodgers out of it because that's another subject. But from the top team, other than the Dodgers, to the lowest team, there's differences, but the differences aren't as big as what you think. It's really all in pitching. That's where it's at. So when you say the American League is bad, well, yeah, but you know what? What year was it the Minnesota Twins went out, and I think they were maybe 10 games over 500. This is probably 80s, 90s when they first won their first World Series. They were a horrible team, and all of a sudden they got hot, and they won it all. So in sports, you don't know. In baseball, the best team doesn't always win. They have been now because the Dodgers have kind of stacked the deck, and they've used the rules to their advantage. But they've kind of stacked the deck. What you have to be able to do is go out and win. So I'm very, as you can hear, I'm pretty frustrated in baseball in general. I'm frustrated more on the fan side of it, that the Tiger fans, because I'll tell you what, Detroit fans are the best. They go out and support things, and for them to have to go through another rebuild, it's frustrating. You had the pitching, you had Skubal, and I don't think Skubal's going to pitch on Friday. I think they're just going to skip him. That's what I would do if I were the Dodgers. Have them take care of all this stuff in Michigan here and skip them.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with all that. I think a lot of people are definitely looking forward to it. And to your point, 26,000 last night still, even with the 6-game losing streak and where they're at in the standings, there's still that many people showing up. So there's definitely a lot of fans. John, we got to hit a break here in a minute, but I appreciate you joining us and giving us the time this morning. Thank you for calling in.
Thanks, brother, and Shep, get well soon.
Absolutely, man. Thank you. All right, well, that's John Vanderwall joining us on the X's and Bros. He's on the Huge Show not every single day, but it feels like every single day lately with the way we've been talking about the Tigers. He's on the Huge Show quite a bit. He's a frequent guest from 3 to 6, Monday through Friday. You can listen to that show. And yeah, make sure you get on Vandy on Tigers. That's where you follow him at. He's a good follow. He gets into a lot of debates. He's not afraid to say his opinion, and I do respect that. I have to say that for me, it's always been, I think trading Tarek Skubal was the right decision for this organization, and not because I think that I get where he's coming from. I hear his argument with the fact that this team shouldn't have kept him. I don't think the Tigers necessarily should have traded him at the deadline. They should have traded him in the offseason. That's what I've been saying since before the season started, because if you weren't going to keep him anyway, what was the point of not getting him at his highest value? That's when they should have made the move. If they were going to make the move, you would have gotten more back for it than he did right now. I think with the situation they were in and the decisions that they made as an organization, Scott Harris, and I'm sure AJ Hinch has hand on that a little bit, they had to do something at this deadline, because to me, the reality is this team probably wasn't going to win a World Series with that bullpen, and I don't think the Tigers were going to add enough to their bullpen to make them good. I would have loved to see them add to their bullpen and keep Tarek Skubal and keep Casey Mize and make a push for it. The reality is they were never going to do that. So for me, I'm okay with the move that they made, because I feel like they had to do that. So I appreciate John joining us. It was a really good conversation. Moving forward on the show now, we'll get into some more here. We'll have Jeff Francoeur at the end of the 8 o'clock hour. Really excited to hear what he has to say about the Dodgers and the Braves last night, and what he's been kind of picking up from it, and what we can get from that, and what we can expect from this weekend. Obviously, John said that he doesn't expect, or he may not think that Tarek Skubal is going to pitch this weekend. He may pitch. We'll see what happens with all that, but I think Tigers fans are excited either way. Kind of see him back at Comerica Park. It's going to be an emotional experience for him, I'm sure. But you're listening to X's and Bros on the Michigan Sports Network.
Our state is Mecca for golf, and one of Michigan's crown jewels is Tullymore and St. Ives. 2 world-class championship courses in one charming and beautiful location. The golf is challenging but fair. You're going to use every club in your bag. But let me tell you what makes Tullymore really special. It's the people. From the wait staff to the bartenders to the pro shop and the management, their sole purpose is to give you a memorable experience. And they do. Go to TullymoreGolf.com today and experience a Michigan masterpiece.
Huge here for Van Andel Institute Purple Community. Now, they're a grassroots fundraising network powered by the volunteers who support VAI's mission to improve health now and in the future. Learn more at purplecommunity.org.
You can't get enough Lions talk. X's and Bros gets that and wants to deliver.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions! That's what I'm talking about!
Every Tuesday at 8:35, we talk with Lions linebacker Jimmy Rolder.
That was a trouble and dumped. Jimmy Rolder had the fumble recovery on the first possession. A lot of sack here.
What's the mood of the team? What's the challenge with the next opponent? And what's his rookie year taught him?
Interception! This time it's Jimmy Rolder!
Lions linebacker Jimmy Rolder, every Tuesday morning on X's and Bros, brought to you by Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort.
Huge here for my good friend Josh Garvey and the team at Dorn Mayhew, West Michigan, one of the world's Top accounting, CPA, and business firms. Our worldwide headquarters are in Troy, Michigan, on the east side of the state. And Josh and his team connect with all the sports fans and businesses across Michigan. They bring you John Beeline on the Huge Show. They bring you Lomas Brown during the Lion season. They are a top shelf team when it comes to growth and understanding what their clients need. And mix in when we do the Beat Huge contests or the NCAA March Madness brackets. Thank you, Josh Garvey, for what you do for the Huge Show and the Michigan Sports Network. Simple and easy. Just find Dorn Mayhew on all the social networks or just Google Dorn Mayhew and find out how they can help your business. And again, a special thanks to Josh Garvey and the Dorn Mayhew team in West Michigan. Huge here for all the ABC warehouse locations in Michigan. Now, if you're looking for the best prices on TVs, furniture, appliances, mattresses, and more, you need to go to abcwarehouse.com. You can shop there and also shop in person at all ABC warehouse locations across Michigan. For the one close to you, go to abcwarehouse.com. Best deals on TVs, appliances, furniture, and mattresses at all ABC warehouse locations in Michigan. Make sure you listen weekly to our Moving Ferris Forward interviews with Ferris President Bill Pink and other leaders who are moving Ferris forward. Find out more about Big Rapids and Ferris and what they have to offer at ferris.edu.
one of those like in-betweens where it's either an out or it's a homer. Like I hit it too high for it to really do anything. But I also didn't realize I carried my bat that far. So that was a fun one. But as soon as I saw who's in right field, DeLuca, as soon as I saw him kind of like fully turn around, I was like, I got pretty excited. I was pretty geeked out about that one. So, needed it for sure.
Did you realize how close you were to Javi on the?
I had no idea. I completely blacked out. The crowd was really cool. That was a really cool moment for sure. And I look up and I can like see his numbers within like touching distance, and I started to panic and slow down a little bit. But no, it was a great feeling.
That's Max Clark, the Detroit Tigers, talking about the home run he hit last night, the big 2-run home run that gave the Tigers the lead and ultimately ended up being the game-winning hits and RBIs for the game. So it was a good night for him. It's kind of funny to hear him talk about that. Jason Beck, one of the longtime reporters for the Detroit Tigers, did a great job asking that question about him almost running into Javi because he was so fast around the base paths last night. I mean, he was amped at that home run, as he should be. It's been a long time coming for Max. Obviously, it's the second one in the season, but it was his first one at Comerica Park, the place that drafted him. He also carried the bat almost all the way to first base with them. So that was pretty funny. I think it was one, like he said, he kind of was waiting to see if it was going to get out or if it wasn't going to. It did end up getting out for him. So that was awesome to see. Tigers win 4-1 last night. Jackson Jobe, a lot of pitches, but goes 4 1/3. Does do the job to get out of a jam and hold the Tigers in the game. So you did like to see that. He gets the job done. He doesn't get to win. The Tigers bullpen after that was the pitching staff that stayed in there, and they didn't allow a run last night. So that's new for the Tigers pitching staff. Definitely that. There's still 4.5 games out of the wild card, still 7 games out of the division. So do with that what you will. I know there's plenty of people that are probably ready to move on to football and totally understand it, but you never know. There's still a lot of things to watch this team. Hayuli had a huge hit last night that extended the lead for the Tigers. You got Jackson Jobe, Troy Melton on the bump today. Max Clark obviously doing exciting things. So there's a lot of players outside of even the most likely American League Rookie of the Year and Kevin McGonigal. There's a lot of other players to watch in this team too that are very exciting. They play at 1:10 today, and Troy Melton will be on the bump. So they're trying to get their first series win at home in a while, that's for sure. So other news going on is free agent running back Kareem Hunt did visit with the Lions yesterday. Obviously, I don't know how much you want to read into that. Isaiah Pacheco is dealing with the injury. Obviously, you've seen. I think a lot of fans have seen in the first couple of preseason games some things they have liked out of the running game with Saylor and company and stuff. They've seen some good runs and stuff, but you still want to strip that position sometimes. So I don't know. I don't know what that speaks to Pacheco's injury and how long he may be out, but nevertheless, Kareem Hunt was there and was visited with the Detroit Lions yesterday, so he did have a practice with them. Obviously, I believe Pacheco and Kareem Hunt did play on the Chiefs at the same time, so probably some kind of relationship there too. So obviously, players talk. It'll be interesting to see how that all worked out. But right now, I want to start you off with the Daily Wager presented by Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort, which is also what this hour is presented by. You can go to the Ascend Sportsbook and watch plenty of games this weekend. You got Week 0 going on. You got the Tigers-Dodgers series going on, the Lions preseason game, the last and final one before the regular season kicks off. There's a lot of stuff to get going and watching there, so you can go to Soaring Eagle and watch that. So I want to start you off with the Daily Wager for myself that I'm doing today, and I'm going to be taking Freddie Peralta to allow over 4.5 hits. He is in 5 of his last 6 games. He's allowed over 6 hits, and they're giving you almost even money on that. So I think that's a good one to take. You have to give me a second because I'm trying to get to the stat line for what happened yesterday for my Daily Wager. But that's what I'm giving you today. I think it's a good one to take, and something that you should look into when it comes to that. The results of the poll question we'll also get to here in a little bit. But yeah, it's definitely a good spot to watch sports at the Ascend Sportsbook. So make sure you check that out at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. Yeah, the Tigers last night, I think that's a game that you were overall probably pretty happy with as a fan. Obviously, they broke the streak of what you were dealing with that. And 6-game losing streak was frustrating for a lot of fans because they felt like just a week ago you're sitting in a playoff spot and you're thinking even when you trade Skubal and everything else, you still have a chance to be able to move on from that and be able to find a way out of it and make your way into the playoffs still and sneak in and backdoor your way in. So it was overall good to see them work their way out of that, but at the end of the day, it wasn't what you wanted. But getting back to the daily wager now, it wasn't a good one for me. I have to do that to myself, and I've had to do it myself 2 days in a row now, so I'm not happy with that. But Kyle Harrison, I said that he would get 6 strikeouts. He got 5, so I was one off on that. That's the tough break sometimes that happens when it comes to betting. You never really know how it's going to go with that kind of stuff, and you try your best to, figure it out every day. But we were on a streak with the over-under on runs, so I almost went with that again today just to kind of bring up the same luck that I had going with that. I think I was on a 4-day streak when it came to the over-under on runs. So if Freddie Peralta can't back me up with allowing at least 5 hits to the Tigers today, which he has done in 5 of his last 6 times out, then I guess we'll have to go maybe back to the over-under on runs and try that. So now the time for the poll question from yesterday, the Mitch Lyons Wealth poll question. If you had to pick one starter for one game this year, who would it be? So basically in baseball, you have to pick one pitcher no matter what for a game. I would imagine, maybe in the playoffs you'd be thinking or something like that. Tarek Skubal was only 10% of the vote, which is interesting to me considering how many people didn't want the Tigers to trade him. Jacob Mizorowski, though, is a very good argument. I understand why people will do that. He won the vote with 71% of the vote. Christopher Sanchez got 13% of the vote, and Paul Skeens only got 6% of the vote. Paul Skeens has been struggling to get through 5 innings lately. He's been having a tough time with that this year, and they'll definitely tell you about that over in Pittsburgh. It's been a little bit of a concern, but Jacob Mizorowski wins the vote. Hard to argue without the numbers he's been putting up this year. It's been extremely impressive, but yeah, nevertheless, Tarek Skubal has a chance to pitch here on Friday in Detroit, and I think that's something that a lot of people are looking forward to. I'm interested to see if it does happen, I believe it's expected to this weekend. Either way, he will be back in the mound. I don't think he pitched since last weekend. So if I go to Friday here and I look, it looks like the expected pitcher for that day, I'm not sure if they have. Yeah, Tarek Skubal is the expected pitcher for Friday, and he'll be pitching against Cater Montero if that does happen. Obviously, John Vanderwall, who we just had on the show, said that he feels like the Dodgers may not pitch him just to kind of avoid. I think Skubal wants all of it. I think he wants every part of coming back to Detroit, and he can like these guys. Okay, these guys have been his friends for years that are in that clubhouse. He was a part of the organization for 8 years. He's obviously made a lot of relationships here. If he can start and the Dodgers are going to let him start, which I think they would, he's going to start. I mean, he's going to pitch against his old team. He wants to strike out 14 batters against this team. There's no question about it. We've all seen the competitive spirit. That was, I think, the thing that a lot of fans liked the most about Tarek Skubal was the competitive spirit that he presented every single time that he was on the mound, and the emotion that he would show in big games when he come off the mound and everything. If you don't think you're going to get that Tarek Skubal if he pitches, you're crazy. I mean, I'm sure there'll be a standing ovation for him. I expect that. I would hope that Tigers fans do that with some of the big starts that he made over the last couple of years, regardless of what you think of him and how things kind of ended this year and what went down the trade deadline and whether you believe what he has to say or not about wishing he was still in Detroit or hoping that they're in conversations with free agency coming up in the offseason. I think you still have to respect what he did for 2 years. Being a back-to-back Cy Young winner is extremely impressive, man. It's not something that everybody gets to experience, and you should be appreciative of who he was. Do I think that he's necessarily worth the $400 million that he probably wants? I don't think anybody's worth $400 million, to be honest, in professional sports, but nevertheless, that's where the market's at sometimes. He could make that much money. I think if he ends up getting paid that much money, a lot of people will probably understand a little bit more why they moved on when they finally decided to move on. Maybe people would have wished they would have earlier or whatever. The point is he may pitch this weekend in Detroit. He's expected to pitch on Friday, and it's going to be absolutely electric inside of Comerica Park if he pitches. And I don't be surprised. I mean, the Tigers have Justin Verlander, obviously later stages of his career, when he came back here, he had a hard time with the Tigers a couple of times. Like, those guys know too, right? And these guys actually have a personal relationship with Tarek Skubal, unlike when Justin Verlander came back for a couple of times. I remember they hit a couple home runs off in the first inning. You would lean Tarek Skubal to win that battle, but you never know. The Tigers batters, I'm sure, will be ready. We're going to get to another break here. We'll be coming back at 8:18 with a little bit more Lions talk for you guys, so make sure you stay tuned in. You're listening to X's and Bros, presented by Soaring Eagle on the Michigan Sports Network.
In the den with Dan Dickerson.
It's a new day to celebrate and be free. It's a new day full of action and excitement because it's a day for winning. Only at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort, your getaway reimagined.
Kevin McDonald is well on his way to becoming the 6th Detroit Tigers player to be named Rookie of the Year. None of his offensive numbers are especially eye-popping, but what is his consistency, his daily work, his preparation, a beat you at any cost on the field personality, and just a nice young man off it. Wins above replacement isn't a be-all, end-all stat, but what WAR does is help us identify those players who excel in all phases of the game. Hitting, running the bases, playing a premium defensive position, and playing it well. Add it all up, and Kevin McGonigal is right there with Bobby Witt Jr. for the highest WAR in the American League. He's on track for a 7 WAR season, which would be the 4th highest of any rookie in baseball the last 25 years. It's been an incredible rookie season for Kevin McGonigal, and this is just the start.
The Freddie the Pizza Man Foundation is dedicated to providing support to families and Michigan schools touched by autism. We invite you to join us in supporting these families and schools by making a donation at freddythepizzaman.com. With your donation, you can help provide essential resources that can make a real impact. Visit freddythepizzaman.com to make a donation and to learn more about the foundation's mission. That's FREDI thepizzaman.com. Together, we can make a difference.
You know, we're fortunate here in Michigan. We have some of the greatest golf courses in the country. Tullymore and St. Ives is part of the reason we can brag the way we do about our golf. Once you visit Tullymore, you'll keep coming back. The view is breathtaking. The golf is fantastic. The accommodations are regal, and the people are special. It really does feel like a home away from home at Tullymore. Make your play and stay reservations today by going to tullymoregolf.com or by calling 1-800-972-4837. That's 1-800-972-4837.
Coming up later today at 3 on the Huge Show on the Michigan Sports Network, I'll deliver huge opinions on everything you're talking about.
Welcome back into X's and Bros. It's Andy McDonald, your host today, filling in for Matt Shepard. He'll be back with us soon. I'm sure you guys know Shep. The lives and breathes this stuff. No doubt he's going to be back with us soon. Just dealing with a little bit of an issue going on, but he'll be back soon, I'm sure. Filling in for you guys today. I've been talking about Tigers wings, but I want to make sure that I get to some of the texts that we've been getting throughout the day on the show, because we appreciate that every single day. You can text Sports Radio to 2100, or you can call the Meyer hotline at 866-838-4348. We got a text here talking about some of the college football stuff. I think the SEC is fine with it because they look at they need to get a championship. Big Ten has been whooping that behind, which is somewhat true in a way. And I mean, the SEC does want to get back on top and get a championship. He also asked, did Chambliss, or whatever his name is, transfer to LSU? Trinidad Chambliss. He used to play for Ferris State, actually. So very familiar with him, because I covered him a few times when he did play for Ferris State. I remember talking to him after the Anchor Bone class against Grand Valley. It was crazy a year later to think that he was playing for an SEC school. He is still at Ole Miss, so he was granted the extra year of eligibility by the NCAA, won that whole thing, and he's going to be back at Ole Miss. Ole Miss is ranked number 9 in the preseason poll, so that's who you'll be getting that from. Other texts are from Freddie the Pizza Man, who's a listener every day, and we appreciate everything he sends our way, and he's a great sponsor of the show. I still have yet to have the pizza, Freddie. I need to get down there and have the pizza. Obviously, in the West Michigan area, when I go to Detroit, it's usually downtown Detroit. I really need to get over there and try the pizza. So Shep has only said great things about it, and I believe every second of it from everything else that I've heard, because the reputation is amazing. He says, where are all those Texan callers that are fitted for Duran for a Hall of Fame jacket? Well, I don't know who's been filling him out for a Hall of Fame jacket. If anybody's out there trying to say that, that's crazy to me. I think people were definitely proud of the regular season that he had, because it looked like his development was going up a lot, and then the postseason kind of became a little bit of a reality spot. He said you can't crumble paper and make a shot into a garbage can next to your desk. I mean, I can't do that. I'm sure Jalen Duran can at some point, but anyway, he said you may want to do some research and look up Andre Drummond's numbers before you make that statement. Sure, I understand that maybe from a certain extent, if you can just look at the numbers, but as the basketball player goes, it seems to be different to me on the floor. I think that he has much, much different footwork and can get to the rim a lot better, and he was a better rebounder at times this year. I mean, Andre Drummond was good when he was in Detroit too, for those kind of things. I understand the comparison. I just think that the body build for Jalen Duran, and if you look at it from not a number standpoint, but you look at it with your eyes, this is just my opinion, I think that there is more to his development. He's still so young. You have to remember that part of it. He is still very young. A lot of time for him to become a better basketball player. I think that there's more to his development there, and he can become a better basketball player. He also said fire AJ Hinch, and that AJ Hinch is so arrogant. I disagree with that. I can't lie about that. I don't think AJ Hinch is arrogant at all. I think AJ Hinch is a manager that will give you great answers back and tell you. I understand that people don't always want to hear that and make it. He does a good job of convincing you that it's always the right answer. I will say that. That's for sure. I get that. I understand that part of it from where you might be hearing it, but I think a lot of the time AJ just sticks to what he does. Now that might be where he's worked himself into a little bit of a problem this year. But again, you and me could, do the coaching from the couch, and it's not going to be the same as when you're there. He sticks to the same thing he's been doing all year, and I do understand that to a certain extent. I don't think this has been AJ's best year. Okay. And I've been a fan of AJ Hinch. I've backed him up and thought that he was a great manager for this team, because guess what? When they were winning games back in 2024 on that streak, and when they started 2025 the way they did, everybody loved the decisions he was making. And I understand it's worked them into trouble now, but I think they are finally we're starting to see some of the young people come up from this organization and play in this lineup every day on a day-to-day basis at the same position a lot of the time, which has not happened under AJ Hinch. There is still so much to figure out on the pitching side of things. I understand the frustration from the bullpen point, but I want you to tell me, who would you put in the game on this team? Who would you put in the game to lock it down and get the save? If you want to say Drew Summers should have closed down the game last night, that's fine, instead of Kenley Jansen. Or if you want to say that when they were in Pittsburgh, whatever it might have been. Drew Summers pitched to the heart of the lineup last night and got 5 straight outs, and I think that was a pretty good way to go about it too. So I think AJ Hinch has not had his best year of some of the decisions he's made. I can't understand some of the times he's taken starting pitching out and stuff like that. And there's things that I don't agree with either. But to call him arrogant is, I don't know. I have a hard time agreeing with that point. But I want to get into a little bit of Lions talk here that I promised you guys coming up on this, because the defensive line, that's been kind of I feel like that's what a lot of people took away from week 2 of the preseason. And a lot of people want to see more in week 3 from that defensive line because it's very important. Here's what Dan Campbell had to say about his defensive line yesterday when he spoke to the media.
D-line room is, that one is, I mean, that can go any way right now. It really can. I mean, there's a number of guys in there. The hard thing is you can't keep all those guys. You just can't. Not without it hurting the rest of your roster. And there's some good players in there. And there's some veterans. There's some young guys. There's raw talent. There's things in there that you really like. And that thing is up in the air right now in a number of spots.
So basically what he's trying to say is that there's the reaction right away. You can tell he's almost kind of happy with what the amount of depth that he is seeing, kind of like the fans are probably seeing right now from the defensive line. So I think there's one thing you can take away that's good from the preseason game is that there might be a rotation on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson finally that can give some productivity that has not been there in past years. And that's been a huge point, because even though Aiden does get the sacks that he gets and gets to the quarterback, it's been a tough go on the other side of the defensive line. Then Ali McNeil being back is obviously huge this year. If you can get another year removed from the injury, if you can get more out of him to that point, you're going to be liking what you get on the other side or what you get in the middle of the line. But obviously Derek Moore showed a lot in that second preseason game. We understand. I promise myself this every year. I'm not going to take too much from the preseason, but I'm also not going to overreact to the preseason. That's why, even though Isaac Tesla's had a bad camp and a bad showing in the first preseason game, then get a target in the second preseason game, that I'm not going to overreact and say that they shouldn't play him and that he shouldn't have any part of this team. I think you got to give him the regular season before you make that kind of judgment. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, Derek Moore looked like he's a professional out there, man. The way he was going at the quarterback and trying to get around the line, the moves he was making when you watch there's plenty of things you can watch out there where you watch his highlights individually. They look good. And I think you liked what you saw from that, and you think you could get something out of that. Obviously, DJ Wonham and Ahmed Hassanin have had their moments too in this preseason where they've shown you that they can also be a force that gets to the quarterback. And that's what the Lions need to do, because right now with the Legion of Whom back there in the secondary, I think, we don't know what's going on with Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch. We don't know when they're going to play for sure. That's the big question mark. You need that defensive line. You need that defensive line to get to the quarterback and make havoc back there, because if they don't do that, their secondary is going to struggle. I mean, there's going to be quarterbacks in this league. They're going to tear them apart again this year. And you don't want, I think the whole thing for the Lions with, Calvin Shepard not having his best season probably last year as a first-year defensive coordinator, you're hoping that he took something away and can draw up some schemes for this linebacking core and defensive line, which both look like they could be strengths of this team. You're hoping that they can find a way to get to the quarterback and cause problems in the backfield to help out a secondary that's in a way thrown together again this year with the Terrion Arnold news that happened this offseason and the Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph injuries. So I like what I've seen from Derek Moore. I like what I've seen from Ahmed Hassanin and DJ Wonham. I like some of the things I've seen on the other side of the ball. So I think that's something you want to watch for. And I think you are, as a fan, even though obviously you don't want the injuries, you do want to see some of these guys play in the third game of the preseason, just to maybe, get more of an idea or get them some more action and having more of an opinion on what this team really could be defensively coming into the season. Because it's very, very important that they utilize that, because everything we've heard about Aiden Hutchinson in camp too is that he's just had glowing reviews. So on the other side of the break, we're going to have Jeff Francoeur from TBS. He also does stuff for the Braves coming up. I'm excited to hear from him and talk to him about some of the stuff coming up with the Dodgers and Tigers series here in the future, maybe a couple other questions as well. So it's going to be a good conversation, so make sure you're tuned in for that. You are listening to X's and Bros on the Michigan Sports Network.
In my pro football days, the key to winning was a great game plan. It's no different when it comes to your retirement. Hi, this is Mitch Lyons from Mitch Lyons Wealth. Is stock market turbulence making you question whether your plan is okay? Do the ups and downs of your retirement account give you the jitters? Are you protected against the next market downdraft? As you approach retirement, you're entering the retirement red zone. Like in football, the game changes in the red zone. There's less time for mistakes, and you need to see your blind spots and protect yourself. Is your retirement safe? Let's find out today. Let's create a game plan together that will protect, grow, and win retirement. You've worked hard to save what you have. Let's make sure you keep it. 30 to 40 years of saving for retirement is worth a 15-minute call to make sure you've done all that you can to protect your retirement. Call Mitch Lyons Wealth today at 844-867-8335. That's 844-867-8335. Or go to MitchLyonsWealth.com. Investment advisory services are offered through MLW Advisory Services, DBA Mitch Lyons Wealth, a state-registered investment advisor.
Huge here for all the ABC warehouse locations in Michigan. Now, if you're looking for the best prices on TVs, furniture, appliances, mattresses, and more, you need to go to abcwarehouse.com. You can shop there and also shop in person at all ABC warehouse locations across Michigan. For the one close to you, go to abcwarehouse.com. Best deals on TVs, appliances, furniture, and mattresses at all ABC warehouse locations in Michigan.
X's and Bros knows how much you love the Lions.
5, end zone, touchdown Detroit Lions.
Every Tuesday at 8:35, we'll talk with Lions linebacker Jimmy Rolder because you just can't get enough football talk.
And DeGraff with the catch with Jimmy Rolder right there, and they love the way Jimmy Rolder plays.
Lions linebacker Jimmy Rolder every Tuesday morning.
Saying, delayed handoff, Jackson, and he's hit in the backfield by Rolder. No game.
X's and Bros brought to you by Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort.
Make sure you listen weekly to our Moving Ferris Forward interviews with Ferris President Bill Pink and other leaders who are moving Ferris forward. Find out more about Big Rapids and Ferris and what they have to offer at ferris.edu.
Welcome back into X's and Bros, everybody. Andy McDonald, your host today, filling in for Matt Shepard, who will be hopefully back with us soon. But right now, we're going to be joined by Jeff Francoeur, who does MLB for TBS, and he was lucky enough last night to call the Dodgers and Braves. I mean, that's some good baseball this time of the year. I don't think anybody can argue with that. Jeff played 12 seasons in the major leagues, and he does broadcasting now for TBS. Jeff, thank you for joining us. How was it last night?
It was one of those things that when you looked at both teams last night, it was crazy because I think until the eighth inning, the first 17 hits were all singles in that game last night. Where when you think about the power on both of those teams
right,
and the slug to have all singles, it was such a crazy stat, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that is definitely one that I wouldn't expect when you're watching that kind of stuff. I guess just obviously, first off, everybody was talking about it the entire season. It's not like it's a secret that Tarek Skubal was like one of the highlights of the trade deadline, and that's kind of what everybody was talking about. And obviously, you didn't watch him pitch last night, but he's on the roster, and maybe you noticed him down in the clubhouse or whatever. What did you think of that trade, and did you think it was the right move for the Tigers to make at the time?
You know, those are so tough, and you know, I never in my wildest dreams thought that the Tigers would have been in the position they were in. You know, it was a good roster. It was a roster with starting pitching. You know, I thought athletically, you know, they had some great guys, and it didn't come together. And I think the toughest thing for whether it's a GM front office is for 4 months to watch it and then all of a sudden say, well, we're going to keep him and it's just going to get 10 times better. And I just think that's such a tough road to go down. You know, and I don't blame the Tigers for getting what they got out of it. You know, you had the biggest chip. You knew he wasn't coming back. And, you know, it just kind of was one of those things that eventually, you know, you have to make a decision. I was actually more of the, you know, I personally would have liked to see them keep Casey Mize and maybe try to re-sign him. I'm a big fan of his. It just, obviously he's not going to command what Skubal's going to command on the open market. But, you know, with that being said, man, you know, it's baseball. And for some reason, you know, we had the Tigers a few times on TBS, and, you know, A.J. Hinch just kept saying the same thing. I don't know why this isn't working. It's just not working.
Yeah, that is very true. Jeff Francoeur joining us on X's and Bros right now, presented by Soaring Eagle Casino and Resorts this hour. He does MLB for TBS. Yeah, honestly, with the A.J. Hinch situation, I guess, and, you know, Scott Harris is the president of baseball operations here. And from some of the times you did hear him talk, does it make any sense to you why it didn't work out? I mean, this was a team that was like coming into the season with some of the additions they have of Framber Valdez, and obviously Justin Verlander just hasn't worked out at all. Framber Valdez has had his struggles. Did it look like a team to you that could have won games, or did you see a problem from the start?
I thought we were going to be there for the playoffs. I was already making plans at Oakland Hills for golf back earlier in the season.
I'm sure Matt would have loved to join you on that.
Oh, yeah. And I tell you this, you know, Seattle's the other team. Same thing, right? You're like, man, this is a wide open division where I just thought, you know, even when you look at their pitching staff, right? You're like, man, if they struggle for a week or two with the bats, the arms are rolling out, you know, they can stop losing streaks at any time. And so again, it never clicked, and I don't know why. And so I think, you know, because of that, at that point they had no choice but to unload Skubal and get the best package they could.
Absolutely, and Zaire Hope did one of the players that got back for him did hit his third home run with the organization last night. So at least if you're a Tigers fan, you're starting to see some kind of payoff with that. But obviously, it's hard to understand when it's at the minor league level compared to what you had with Tarek Skubal at the major league level. Jeff Francoeur joining us here on X's and Bros this morning. How about Kevin McGonigal? Have you been able to watch any of what he's been able to do this year? And I guess, what do you like about him as a player?
Love him. I'd tell you the first thing I love about him, how many times do you see young kids come up so aggressive? He's one of the more patient hitters I've ever seen at a young age, uses all the field. I think we did the Tigers-Yankees game maybe that night, and up in New York, and I think he saw like 26 pitches and 4 ABs. It was crazy. And, I think he's a guy you can build a team around. He's going to be dependable. And I think the other thing is he'll grow into his power. Right now you look at him and, as he gets another 2 or 3 years older, to me, a lot of those balls in the gap, maybe some of those deeper fly balls, they're just going to go out of the park. So I think he's an incredible guy to build around. And, man, the Tigers got to win on that. I mean, I don't know how he's not going to be the rookie of the year.
For sure. And I think that's some of the stuff that some of the fans are looking forward to here. With the Braves, obviously, Jeff Francoeur here joining us, who's spent time playing for the Braves and other major league teams. What do you like about them? I mean, 75 and 55, they seem to be kind of getting back to the team that people expect them to be with some of the names they have on that roster.
No, they definitely are. I think the one thing that their offense has kind of become a feast or famine thing. And, that's why I actually think last night, if you're watching the game, to see the Braves manufacture runs with singles and moving guys, we even had a bunt. That's something we have not seen from this team. And as well as I do, you get to the postseason, as much as you love the long ball, as much as you love to see the home run, you cannot rely on that the whole postseason. There's too much good pitching. There's too much good swing in this. So I think for the Braves to find ways to be able to score like that, is going to be very beneficial. It's so funny because the NL and the AL, I mean, it's just so different. We did the NL postseason last year with TBS. It's just loaded again this year. The Brewers, the Dodgers, the Braves, the Phillies, the Cubs. And then, we're doing the American League this year. And I'm like, I think there's 10 teams that could win the thing, right? Like, you're like, holy crap. If any of these teams get hot, they could win it. So it's going to be very different. But, I said it again last night. Until you can knock the Dodgers off, I mean, how can you not pick them to win?
Yeah, I know it's tough to go against that. I totally understand that. That getting to that point where you said about the American League where almost 10 teams can win it, I completely agree. It's obnoxious to look at it right now at the standings. Obviously, the Rays have a very respectable record, but outside of that, I mean, is this, from your experience as a player and a broadcaster, is this the worst you've ever seen the American League, maybe a league in general, since you've been in baseball?
I think so. And that's tough to say because you don't ever want to say worse, but there's no clear front runner. There's no team, I mean, the Rays have been the most consistent probably all year, but still, if you look at them lately, they have struggled. And that's why I said, if you're sitting there as a Detroit fan, I mean, if you were able to rip off 7 in a row at some point, which is not unheard of, right? I mean, we've seen it done. All of a sudden, you would be in the wild card, the last team in the wild card. So there's still so much to unpack in the AL, but it's just it's almost a coin flip, like I said, to see kind of who is going to represent that division. Or that league. It's going to be very interesting. The last 5 weeks.
For sure. That's definitely what everybody's trying to figure out right now. I feel like with that league in general, I mean, as bad as the season has been for the Tigers here locally with people, there's still only 4.5 games out of the wild card. And I think people are kind of sick of hearing that point, but it is true. Jeff Francoeur joining us on X's and Bros right now, presented by Soaring Eagle Casino and Resorts this hour, does games for TBS, spent 12 seasons in baseball. Jeff, I guess going off of that last night, from your experience covering games in the playoffs, like you said, you did the NL last year in the postseason. How close did that game feel to a postseason game? Do you expect these two teams to be meeting in the postseason between the Braves and Dodgers?
There's definitely that chance. That's the thing. You look at it right now, the way it's kind of fallen, you're going to have the Brewers, Dodgers, and Braves as probably your 3 division winners. So how that pans out, the one thing we showed last night on TV, the Dodgers have the second easiest schedule left in baseball. I think they still have 9 combined with the Giants and Rockies. And so, and look, the Brewers have 7 out of 10 coming up next week against the Cubs. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. But, you look at it, and again, I think, talking to Dave Roberts, you get to spend 15 minutes with the managers, and, they're going to start ramping Shohei Ohtani back up. And, I mean, it's almost like we saw this last year with the Dodgers, and we're seeing it again where they're not going to overexert these arms during the regular season. They're going to ramp them up and get them ready for October. And, you saw it with Glass now, his first start last night in 3 months. Snell, 2 starts since he's come back, going to start ramping it up, and Ohtani. So, and then you throw Skubal and Yamamoto in there. We haven't even talked about those 2 guys, right? So it's a tough act. But I will tell you this. I think this is the first year that we can say that the Dodgers offensively are probably not what they've been in the past as a team totality. So I do think that, there is a, I don't want to say weakness because they're still leading a lot of categories, but there is room to clip them from that side.
Absolutely. I can agree with that. Definitely. It's been a much different year for them offensively, it feels like. Do you have a favorite on either side to make the World Series? Who would it be?
Honestly, the way that I still got to pick the Dodgers in the National League.
Totally get it.
I mean, I can give you reasons why other teams can get them. The Brewers, I think, are actually a better hitting team this year than they were last year, so that gives them some hope. Mizorowski's been incredible. A couple guys after that. On the American League side, I've continued to say this. It a lot to me is going to depend if Aaron Judge comes back. If you put Aaron Judge in that lineup, they got Bellinger back right now. That's a huge plus. They put 7 runs up yesterday. They got a rotation if they get Fried back of Cole, Fried, Schlittler, Rodon. Like, they can match you with some arms. But you also got to respect the freaking mojo that the Red Sox are rolling right now. I mean, this is a team that is playing as confident as anybody I've seen in baseball. They're only a game and a half back now of the Yankees, and they're only 5 games back of the Rays. And, don't look now, but they got the Yankees for 4 this weekend. If you're able to take 3 out of 4 there, flip that around where you can host the wild card game, I could easily see Boston getting hot and running that thing.
For sure. I with the way they were playing at one point this summer, if they get hot, that's definitely a team you want to watch out for. Jeff Francoeur
in a row.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, man. Jeff Francoeur joining us here on X's and Bros this morning. Jeff, obviously you mentioned if the Tigers were in the postseason, you were planning on playing Oakland Hills. I can tell you're a golfer. Matt informed me on that. Obviously, last night the PGA just reported they don't really have a path back for these live golfers to make it back to the PGA. What is your take on that? And do you want them to come back? Do you think they'll make their way back into the PGA? How does that all work out?
I hope they do, man. I like what Scotty Scheffler said last week. There's plenty of guys on that tour that bring value. And, should there be strict penalties? Absolutely. We saw it with Brooks Koepka, what they did. And I think, you should make that kind of across the board to a lot of those guys. They have the ability to get back, but there's a certain path back. I think to sit there and say you don't want John Rahm, Bryson DeChambeau, Cam Smith, some of these guys, I don't love that because I do think it's better for the game when they're all on the same tour. So, I think PGA is kind of in a tough spot right now, right? You come out and said all this stuff. Well, you leave, you're gone, you're never coming back. You let Koepka come back. Now you're going to have to start opening this up a little bit for guys to come back, I think. But I'm sure there's some tough feelings. I got a chance to talk to Tommy Fleetwood for a little bit last night. He was at the game. A lot of golfers were at the game because, the Tour Championship being here in Atlanta this week, starting tomorrow at East Lake. So, got a chance to talk to some of them. And look, a lot of those guys are friends, man. They've played on Ryder Cups together and talk. So I'm sure like anything, there's part of you that's like, hey, you made your bed, now lie in it. But also part of that's like, hey, there's a way back to the tour. There's a way back because it's always going to dominate. I don't think you got to just shut the doors and tell people they're never welcome back. And you didn't with Brooks Koepka.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. I really hope that they do find their way to make it back. It's the best golfers in the world. You want to see them at the peak of the sport playing against each other. That's how I feel about it. Jeff Francoeur joining us from TBS. I got to ask you one last question here. You said you played Oakland Hills here. Have you been able to play any other golf courses in Michigan when you've been here?
You know what? Yeah, I've played a couple. I played one out in Birmingham. You know, Chris Getz, the GM of the White Sox, is from Detroit. So we used to play a couple times. We played, obviously, both Oakland Hills. But I loved up there that time of year. I will tell you this, when we were there for the playoffs 2 years ago, me and Brian Anderson, we played 36 at Oakland Hills, man, came up 18 with the sun setting. It was one of the best days. And that's when they still had the makeshift clubhouse sitting there to the right over there on one. So it was a great time. And, you know, after being there 2 years ago and, you know, the game 5 with Cleveland and how great it was to have playoff baseball back in Detroit, I think that's what it made disappointing is I think everybody figured getting the playoffs last 2 years and now looking at the team that they put out there this year, you just assume they were going, right? Like, man, there's too many pieces not to go. And you started salivating at the idea of Tarek Skubal, Mize, Framber Valdez, you know, Flaherty, all these guys in the postseason. And like I said, it just has not clicked. And, you know, it was a tough little go.
It's one of those things confusing to figure out, that's for sure. But the one thing that's not confusing to figure out, I agree with you on, is that the golf is phenomenal here in Michigan for sure. So I'm glad you got to experience some of that, man. Thank you so much.
It's a shorter golf season than Atlanta, right? But it's phenomenal.
Oh, gosh, I wish it was longer. Trust me, I can't explain to you that. That's how I like to spend any time I get. So I appreciate you giving us some time, Jeff. It means a lot. Thank you for joining us, and best of luck with everything going on with you for baseball for the rest of the year.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Absolutely. That's Jeff Francoeur that joined us here on X's and Bros. Awesome conversation, man. Really, really nice guy. Really good stuff. And I'm glad that he has gotten to experience some of that golf here. Because as you know, if you listen to this show enough, you know that Matt Shepard, our main host here that's usually hosting, he absolutely loves golf. And I'm sure those two have had plenty of conversations about it when they've gotten together. That's for sure. It's almost no question about it in my mind. But that's going to do it for us today here on X's and Bros. We appreciate you guys listening. Matt will be hopefully back with us soon. We're going to have Dan Hasty on the show tomorrow to assist me with hosting. He does the Whitecaps broadcasting. He will be out on here to co-host with me, and we'll have more conversations for you guys and talk about the end of this Tiger series that wraps up today. That'll do it for us. Make sure you listen to the huge show this afternoon from 3 to 6 on the Michigan Sports Network. It's every Monday to Friday. You can do 3 to 6. You can listen to it right there. So thank you for listening today on the Michigan Sports Network.
You know, we're fortunate here in Michigan. We have some of the greatest golf courses in the country. Tullymore and St. Ives is part of the reason we can brag the way we do about our golf. Once you visit Tullymore, you'll keep coming back. The view is breathtaking. The golf is fantastic. The accommodations are regal, and the people are special. It really does feel like a home away from home at Tullymore. Make your play and stay reservations today by going to tullymoregolf.com or by calling 1-800-972-4837. That's 1-800-972-4837.
Huge here for the Michigan High School Athletic Association. You can stay up to date on the latest from Lansing 24/7 at MHSAA.com, at MHSAA on Twitter, and MHSAA on Facebook. The latest news, press releases, and stories connected to every high school in the state.